Chapter 3605. Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. It wasn't strange to inquire about the 4 forbidden areas. After all, anyone would be curious about them. However, if one inquired about it repeatedly, it would seem a bit unusual, because once or twice was out of curiosity, but if one inquired too many times, there might be a purpose. The most important thing was, where was the blood ancestor? After so many years, the blood ancestor should have reconstructed his body and divine soul. Moreover, when they were in the Nether King's hell, they all thought that Li Feng would return to the ancient world, but in the end, the blood ancestor took him straight to the sky cloud realm. First, the blood ancestor had long known about the existence of the sky cloud realm. At first, even the fire python, the guardian, didn't know that there was a 4th level. Second, there should be something here that the blood ancestor was plotting. Otherwise, why would he take Li Feng here? But it was said that the blood ancestor was a figure of the ancient world. What did he have to do with the sky cloud realm? Could it be that everything was a misunderstanding? Or had the blood ancestor been hiding some secrets all this time? After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang looked at the madman and the white-eyed wolf and asked, "Are you interested in going to the Death Glacier?" The madman and the white-eyed wolf were taken aback. The 4 giants of the Sky Palace and He Zhongtian looked at each other speechlessly. "Are you interested in going to the Death Glacier?" What an arrogant tone. You know, this was one of the 4 forbidden areas of the Sky Cloud realm. Not to mention the mysterious race hidden in the core area. The danger of the Death Glacier alone was enough to make people tremble in fear. These fellows were truly audacious. Wherever there was danger, they would run. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, and turned to look at the madman. His eyes flickered as he said, "I always feel that these 4 forbidden areas have a lot to do with the 2 of us." "The 2 of us?" The madman was taken aback and quickly waved his hand. "Don't count me in. If there is a connection, it's only related to you. Do you really think so? If it has nothing to do with you, would you have that inexplicable sense of intimacy in the Yin Demon Land? If it has nothing to do with you, would you be able to absorb the power of the Yin Demon? Furthermore, it allowed the divine power to evolve into the blood demon power?" Qin Feiyang threw out 2 questions in a row, leaving Madman speechless. When the white-eyed wolf heard this, he turned to look at Madman with a thoughtful expression. Qin Feiyang continued, "Therefore we need to take a look at the remaining 2 forbidden areas, the Death Glacier and the Land of Buried Gods. We need to see if we can discover anything." "All right." Madman nodded. "Actually, the most important thing is that I have an intuition." Qin Feiyang looked up at the sky, his eyes flickering. "What intuition?" Madman looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. He didn't believe in other people's intuition, but Qin Feiyang's intuition had always been very accurate. "What does the blood ancestor know?" Qin Feiyang murmured. "Brother Wolf, look. Madman immediately glared at the white-eyed wolf and said angrily, "It's all your fault. Why did you let Li Feng go for no reason?" The white-eyed wolf smiled embarrassedly. It also had feelings, okay? There would definitely be some compassion in his heart. The woman looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, hesitated for a moment and asked, "Can I ask you a question?" "What question?" The 2 people and 1 wolf were puzzled. "Qin Feng. No, Li Feng. What kind of grudge do you have with him?" As the woman's voice fell, the 3 people in black also looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf in confusion. Grudge? The 2 people and 1 wolf were stunned. Seeing their reaction, the 4 people became more and more puzzled. "We don't have any grudges with him." Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, shook his head, and sighed. "Not only do we not have any grudges, but we used to have a very good relationship. Many years ago, I gave him a pill to unlock the door of potential." The 4 people looked at each other. He gave Li Feng a pill to unlock the door of potential? Then their relationship was really unusual. "The reason why I wanted to kill him was because I expected better from him. Originally, I had great expectations for him and wanted him to stay by my side. First, I could teach him cultivation, and second, I could take care of him, but..." Qin Feiyang heaved a deep sigh and explained the general situation. Hearing this, the 4 people suddenly understood. The woman in the palace dress asked, In other words, you don't hate Li Feng, but you don't want to see him kill the innocent and go astray? That's right. Back then he was a very simple and kind boy. But after meeting the blood ancestor, he became a demon king. In fact, the person I really want to kill is not him, but the blood ancestor, Qin Feiyang said. Elder Wang looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a hoarse laugh, "This old man believes that Li Feng also knows your painstaking efforts and expectations for him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have always respected you so much." Respected me? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. Over the years, apart from asking about the situation of the 4 forbidden areas, he also asked about you guys the most. In fact, he even asked us for a favor during the conference. Elder Wang said. What is it? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. He begged us to lend you a helping hand if necessary. At first, we did not understand why he did this. Although he is still very young, he has a mature and steady personality. He does not show any signs of his actions, making it difficult for others to see through him. Until now, I finally understand that he has always been concerned about you. Elder Wang said. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and frowned. So this is why you did not make things difficult for us during the exchange? Yes. To be honest, the Blood Hall had already contacted us in private. They offered very generous conditions, hoping that the Sky Hall would join forces with them to deal with you. If not for Li Feng's request, we might have been involved in this dispute. Elder Wang sighed. Qin Feiyang fell silent when he heard this. Actually, Li Feng did this to protect the Sky Hall. Madman suddenly laughed. Protect the Sky Hall? The 4 of them were slightly stunned. That's right. Because Li Feng knows us too well. He did not think highly of the Blood Hall from the beginning. If you guys had really agreed to join forces with the Blood Hall, the Sky Hall would have followed in the footsteps of the Blood Hall. Madman said. The 4 of them could not help but feel a chill down their spine when they thought about it carefully. Madman glanced at the 4 of them, and then noticed He Zhongtian beside them. He also had a fearful look on his face. Madman asked suspiciously, Old He, what do you want to say? Ha! He Zhongtian came back to his senses and looked at Madman with a flustered expression. Madman pondered for a while and joked. Don't tell me that the Blood Hall also approached the Deity Hall back then? Cough cough. He Zhongtian coughed dryly to hide the awkwardness on his face. As expected. Madman muttered. The woman in palace attire shook her head and smiled. At that time, this old man believes that apart from the Demon Hall, the other major forces such as the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, the Deity Hall, and my Sky Hall and the Blood Hall had contacted them. Heard about it. He Zhongtian smiled bitterly and nodded. Yes, the Blood Hall did contact our Deity Hall back then. At that time, I also agreed to help the Blood Hall, but at that time I did not have the final say in the Deity Hall. Yin Zhongtian clearly expressed his objection. Why did old Yin object? Madman was stunned. He Zhongtian said, because Yin Zhongtian said that the Blood Hall is not a good person, and we can't collude with them. Otherwise, we would be betrayed by them in the end and have to help them count the money. Madman nodded in realization and joked. It seems that Yin Zhongtian has a good eye. He Zhongtian smiled embarrassedly. Later on, when I saw you guys clashing with the Blood Hall several times and the Blood Hall basically suffered a great loss, I was indeed glad that I did not listen to the slanderous words of the Blood Hall. But things are unpredictable. The appearance of the dragons gave you confidence, so you started to deal with us. Madman looked at him playfully. He Zhongtian smiled awkwardly and nodded. Yes. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang. He swept his gaze over He Zhongtian and the 4 heads of the Heavenly Hall, cold sweat dripping down his back. He didn't expect Pei Tianhong to be so ruthless. Not only did he collude with the Wandering Cultivator Alliance, he even instigated the Deity Hall and Heavenly Hall. Looking at it this way, it was all thanks to Li Feng and Yin Zhongtian. Otherwise, facing the Blood Hall, Wandering Cultivator Alliance, Heavenly Hall, and Deity Hall, these 4 super forces, it would be a struggle to survive. Even with the Demon Hall's help, with their strength at that time, they wouldn't have been able to deal with them easily. Qin Feiyang glanced at the Pei siblings and shook his head. This father of yours is really scary. The siblings smiled embarrassedly. All right. Take good care of the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang let out a long sigh of relief. No matter what, the difficult moment was over. Now they had to go all out to deal with the bigger crisis in the future. Yes. The siblings nodded respectfully. Now that they had opened the door to potential, their attitude towards Qin Feiyang was even more respectful than before. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and let everyone out of the Black Tortoise world. Although more than half a day had passed in the Black Tortoise world, only a moment had passed outside. Seeing Qin Feiyang and the others appear, Princess Huofeng's eyes were filled with disdain. Was there a need to guess? It was obvious that the 4 people of the Heavenly Hall and He Zhongtian had already submitted to Qin Feiyang. These dragons were really pitiful. They thought that they had the overall situation under control and were strategizing. Little did they know that the people who flattered them all day long were already Qin Feiyang's subordinates. Go, everything will be as usual. Qin Feiyang looked at He Zhongtian and the others and smiled faintly. All right. The 5 of them nodded. After the 5 of them left, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Princess Huofeng and the others and smiled apologetically. Sorry for making you wait for so long. You still know. What do you mean by that? We are members of the Fire Phoenix clan after all. Can't you at least give us some basic respect? Princess Huofeng snorted coldly. Haha, Qin Feiyang laughed. The white-eyed wolf's eyes flashed slightly as he looked at Qin Feiyang and laughed evilly. Little Qin Zi, little lunatic, why don't we go straight to the dragon's nest now? What? The 2 of them were stunned. Don't you have 8 sovereign divine weapons now? Together with the sword of Thanatos, the horsetail whisk, and the ancient castle, it won't be a problem to go to the dragon's nest. The white-eyed wolf looked at Lunatic and laughed evilly. Chapter 3606. The madman's expression changed. He quickly looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, Don't say that. But before he finished speaking, 8 beams of divine light shot out from the madman's body. Then, without looking back, he disappeared from everyone's sight. They were the 8 ruler-level divine weapons that the madman had found. What's going on? The white-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang were both stunned. The madman's expression darkened. He glared at the white-eyed wolf and said, Why do you keep coming up with such stupid ideas? What does this have to do with me? The white-eyed wolf was suspicious. Nonsense. If you didn't tell them to go to the dragon nest, would they have left? The madman roared angrily. How would I know that they would leave after hearing that? The white-eyed wolf also had an aggrieved expression. Qin Feiyang looked suspiciously at the madman and asked, Senior brother, what's going on? The madman glanced at the Princess Huofeng and the others and said, When we borrowed these ruler-level divine weapons from the 8 beast emperors, they already told us that we can only use them for self-defense. If we want them to do something else, they have to leave us immediately. Why didn't you say so earlier? The white-eyed wolf said angrily. How would I know that you would suddenly say something like that? The madman was extremely angry. The white-eyed wolf snorted. This is your fault. Say it again, whose fault is it? The madman roared. Qin Feiyang was speechless as he watched the 2 of them bickering. Then, he raised his head and looked in the direction where the 8 sovereign divine weapons had left. It seemed that the 8 beast emperors didn't want to become enemies with the dragons. Just how terrifying were the dragons? Even the 8 beast emperors were so wary of them. When Princess Huofeng and the others saw this scene, they were also suspicious. What were these people doing? Stop. What's there to argue about? The 8 great beast emperors helped us out of kindness, but it's their duty not to help us. We can't force them to do anything. Qin Feiyang stopped the madman and the white-eyed wolf and said, Don't waste time. Let's hurry to the Death Glacier. But then again, the fact that the 8 beast emperors were willing to lend them their sovereign weapons for self-defense was already beyond the realm of ordinary friendship. Although he often sent wine to the 8 beast emperors, how could they care about such a small favor? Could it be that Little Rabbit was secretly helping them? Thinking about it, this was the only possibility, because only the little rabbit had such great face. Seems like I didn't acknowledge him as my big brother for nothing. The white-eyed wolf opened a space-time tunnel. Just as Qin Feiyang was about to enter the space-time tunnel, he suddenly stopped, pondered for a moment, and waved his hand. Wait a moment. The 8 beast emperors have helped us so much. We naturally have to thank them." After saying that, Qin Feiyang disappeared without a trace. Soon, Qin Feiyang reappeared with 2 interspatial rings in his hand. He handed them to the white-eyed wolf and said with a smile, "Help me deliver these to the Sea Lion King and Big Brother." After seeing the things in the 2 interspatial rings, the white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched slightly. He said helplessly, "So much divine wine. You are really generous." Divine wine. Pyrotechnic Glow's eyes lit up when he heard that. "Go ahead. They don't care about other things. This is the only way to express our gratitude." Qin Feiyang smiled. The white-eyed wolf nodded and opened a portal to leave. Pyrotechnic Glow approached Qin Feiyang and chuckled. "Qin Dage, do you really have divine wine?" Qin Feiyang looked at Pyrotechnic Glow in astonishment. Why was the look in his eyes so similar to Yin Zhongyue's? Princess Huofeng's face couldn't help but darken. She said angrily, "Pyrotechnic Glow, what do you want to do?" No. Pyrotechnic Glow hurriedly waved his hand, looking guilty. Soon, the white-eyed wolf returned. Pyrotechnic Glow quietly walked to the white-eyed wolf and said with a smile, "Wolf pup, brother wolf, do you have more? Give me some." "What do you mean?" The white-eyed wolf looked at him suspiciously. "Aren't you asking the obvious?" Pyrotechnic Glow rolled his eyes, and then put on a pitiful look. "Sorry, I really don't understand." The white-eyed wolf waved his claws, opened a space-time portal, and ran in without looking back. Pyrotechnic Glow was about to chase after him, but when he felt Princess Huofeng's fierce eyes, he immediately swallowed his saliva and returned to the first princess's side, cursing the white-eyed wolf in his heart. Didn't he say a few words of disdain at the beginning? Was there a need to be so vengeful? 3 days later, at noon, 3 invisible consciousnesses swept out from the core area of the Yin Demon Land, the Glacier Forest, and the Heavy Domain Land, cut through the sky, and landed in the center of the Heavenly Cloud Sea. And in the center of the Heavenly Cloud Sea, that was the Heavenly Cloud Island. The little rabbit rushed out of the mountain at the first moment, holding a wine jar in her hand, standing on the top of the mountain, glancing at the 3 consciousnesses with a cold light in her eyes. The 3 consciousnesses gathered in the sky above the Heavenly Cloud Island, and gradually turned into 3 hazy figures. They couldn't see their faces clearly, nor could they tell whether they were men or women, nor could they sense the slightest aura. But at this moment, not only the little rabbit, but the 8 beast emperors who controlled the Heavenly Cloud Sea all came out of their caves and looked at the Heavenly Cloud Island with a dignified look in their eyes. At the top of the mountain, the little rabbit held the wine jar, raised her head, and gulped it down in one gulp. Then, she casually threw the jar, shattering it with a bang. The person standing on the east side of the Heavenly Cloud Island said, "It seems that our arrival has made you very uncomfortable." This was a man's voice. "Don't talk nonsense." The little rabbit raised her eyebrows. "Okay. This noble one will be frank. When Qin Feiyang came to the Heavenly Cloud Realm, you found us and told us not to kill him before he broke through to the Sovereign Realm. We kept our word. No matter how much trouble the younger generation caused these years, we didn't interfere. But what about you? This time you actually asked the 8 beast emperors to give them 8 sovereign divine weapons. Isn't this a violation of our original agreement?" The person on the east side spoke with a tone that was filled with contempt for the common people of the world. Hearing this, the little rabbit turned to the other 2 and said indifferently, "What do you 2 want to say? Say it all at once." However, the other 2 remained silent. The little rabbit waited for a moment. Seeing that the 2 didn't speak, she looked at the person on the east side. A terrifying aura roared out, and her eyes were as sharp as blades. "What do you mean?" the person on the east side said in a deep voice. "This Lord Rabbit should be asking you this. What do you mean? It's not that you don't know how powerful a sovereign divine weapon is, but you dragons actually gave each of your princes and princesses a sovereign divine weapon. What? Relying on your sovereign divine weapons to bully others?" The little rabbit sneered. The person on the east side said, "It's just for self-defense." "Self-defense? Dragon King, don't you think this is ridiculous?" Lord Rabbit doesn't believe that you don't know what those princes and princesses have done outside during this period. They're using it for self-defense. If it weren't for Qin Feiyang, Little Madman, and White-Eyed Wolf being cautious and smart, who knows how many times they would have died. To think that you still dare to come to Lord Rabbit to settle the score. It's good that Lord Rabbit didn't come to settle the score with you. The little rabbit said domineeringly. The person on the east side fell silent. Lord Rabbit admits that it was Lord Rabbit who let the 8 beast emperors lend their sovereign divine weapons to Little Madman. But so what? Lord Rabbit is just imitating you. The little rabbit sneered. Fine. My dragons are in the wrong in this matter. The person on the east side nodded. Don't say that. If you want to say something, you should say that your princes and princesses are too useless. Even if you brought so many sovereign divine weapons, you still fell in the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others time and time again. The little rabbit's face was full of disdain. Although it couldn't see the Dragon King's expression, it could clearly feel a wave of anger from him. He said in a deep voice, Fine, let's not talk about these things of the past now. Let's talk about the future. Speak, Lord Rabbit is listening. The little rabbit took out another wine jar and lay down on a rock, drinking leisurely. Back then, our agreement was that before Qin Feiyang stepped into the sovereign realm, we wouldn't personally make a move against him. But now he has broken through to the sovereign realm. You shouldn't obstruct us anymore, right? The Dragon King's tone was filled with killing intent. Of course. The little rabbit nodded and glanced at the other two with a meaningful smile in its eyes. It looked at the Dragon King and said, But now you have to ask them if they agree. The Dragon King looked at the other two. You little bastard, you're really the same as before. Everything is within your calculations. A person in the west chuckled. This was a woman's voice. It was incomparably gentle, but there was a trace of helplessness towards the little rabbit. The little rabbit snorted coldly and said, Stinky woman, don't keep calling me little bastard. In terms of age, you still have to call Lord Rabbit ancestor. The woman seemed to be speechless. She raised her head and looked at the Dragon King, saying indifferently, Sorry, the Foam people and Qin Feiyang have already made an agreement that we won't make a move against them for 1,000 years. Bastard! Why would you make such an agreement with Qin Feiyang? The Dragon King was instantly enraged when he heard that. The woman smiled faintly and said, This is the business of the Foam people. There shouldn't be a need to report to Lord Dragon King in advance. The Dragon King clenched his fists and looked at the other person. I have also made an agreement with someone to not make a move against Qin Feiyang, and the rest for 1,000 years. This was the voice of an old man. Although it was hoarse, it was sonorous and powerful, with a natural pressure. Both have an agreement? What exactly are you doing? It seems that Qin Feiyang has never been to your Death Glacier at all. The Dragon King looked at the old man and said angrily. The old man said, He has never been there, and I didn't make an agreement with him. You didn't make an agreement with him? The Dragon King was slightly taken aback and said suspiciously, Then who did you make an agreement with? This bastard who drinks like his life? Fuck. Who are you scolding? Who's the bastard? Say it again if you have the guts. Lord Rabbit will immediately kill his way to the dragon's nest and raise your nest to the ground. The little rabbit immediately glared at the Dragon King. Chapter 3607. Go ahead and try if you have the ability. When Dragon King heard this, he wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he was full of provocation. Shameless. The little rabbit was disdainful and said indifferently, Their agreement has nothing to do with Uncle Rabbit at all. But Uncle Rabbit knows the reason inside. What reason? Dragon King was puzzled. The little rabbit joked, If you beg me, I will tell you. As the master of the forbidden area, Dragon King's temperament was definitely far beyond ordinary people. But looking at the little rabbit who was acting like a scoundrel at this moment, he couldn't help but be annoyed. Little bastard, can you stop angering our Dragon King? If you accidentally anger him to death, you will have to find a grave for him in the heavenly cloud sea. The woman chuckled. It's okay, my heavenly cloud sea has nothing but big. Not to mention finding a grave for him. Even if you two are at it, it doesn't matter. Why don't Uncle Rabbit help the three of you find a grave now? Don't worry, old friends of many years. Uncle Rabbit will never cheat you. I promise to help you find a place with good feng shui. The little rabbit bared his teeth. As soon as these words came out, whether it was Dragon King, the woman, or the old man, they all glared at the little rabbit fiercely. Dragon King ignored the little rabbit and looked at the woman and the old man, saying in a deep voice, "What do you mean?" The old man said in a hoarse voice, "As the master of the forbidden area, you must keep your words. Since you have already made an agreement, you naturally can't go back on your words." "Is that so? But why do I feel that you are trying to curry favor with him?" Dragon King sneered. The woman said proudly, "What a joke. Do we need to curry favor with a human brat? Apart from curry favor, I really can't think of any other reason, but don't forget that you are also involved in that matter. No matter how you curry favor with Qin Feiyang now, when he learns the truth, he will not let you go." Dragon King smiled coldly. "I don't need you to remind me. We haven't forgotten about this matter." As if touching on some taboo, the woman and the old man's tone instantly emitted a bone-piercing cold current. "It's fine as long as you haven't forgotten. Everyone has seen Qin Feiyang's growth speed. If we continue to sit back and do nothing and let him continue to grow like this, a second human sovereign will inevitably be born in the future. You know what the consequences will be then. That's all I have to say. Think about it." After saying that, the Dragon King's consciousness dissipated in the void. The woman and the old man remained silent. Little Rabbit drank as she watched the two of them without batting an eyelid. After a long time, their consciousnesses also dissipated in the void of space. The little rabbit immediately let out a sigh of relief. Wong. The void distorted and the Sea Lion Emperor landed on the mountain peak. He smiled. "Uncle Rabbit, I didn't expect you to be so nervous." How could the masters of the three great forbidden areas not be nervous? The little rabbit rolled her eyes at him. The Sea Lion Emperor couldn't help but laugh. He lifted his head to look at the horizon and sighed. "It seems that Qin Feiyang and the others have already made the three lords of the Forbidden Zones wary." "Are you telling a joke? A mere Qin Feiyang, a little lunatic, a wolf cub, can make the three lords wary. What they are really wary of is not Qin Feiyang and the others, but the one imprisoned in the land of the buried gods. If this one escapes, the three great forbidden areas will definitely face a catastrophe. Moreover, the other few have also quietly returned. Although they are still very weak now, when the day they awaken, the three great forbidden areas, they will definitely pay the price." As for Qin Feiyang, he has indeed displayed extraordinary talent and means, but it still depends on his luck. Let's wait patiently. After saying that, the little rabbit got up and disappeared into the mountains below with the wine jar. After the Sea Lion Emperor watched the little rabbit leave, he retracted his gaze and looked at the endless sea in front of him. He muttered, "You don't have much time left. Hurry up and awaken." At the same time, Death Glacier. Heavy snow swirled and the cold wind was bone-chilling. In the past 3 days, Qin Feiyang and the others had been rushing on their way. The current Qin Feiyang and Lunatic had both reached the sovereign realm, so their speed was naturally incomparable to before. At this moment, they had already reached the central region. The Death Glacier was the same as the Een Devil Land and the Heavy region. It was divided into the outer region, the edge region, the central region, the inner region and the core region. Every region was incomparably vast. At this moment, they stood above a glacier and scanned the front. The glaciers in the central region were even more magnificent. There were countless ice mountains that were tens of thousands of feet tall, and beasts could often be seen appearing. The Death Glacier was the same as the Een Devil Land. There were a large number of beasts, but the difference was, the Death Glacier didn't have anything like the Een Devil power, nor did it have the gravity of the Heavy region. Whether it was a human or a beast, as long as they could withstand the cold current of the Death Glacier, they could stay here for a long time. However, if one thought that the risk of the Death Glacier was small, then it was a big mistake, because this kind of cold current wasn't something an ordinary person could withstand. For the cold current of the Edge region, even a beginner sovereign wouldn't be able to withstand it for more than a few days. Along the way, Qin Feiyang and the others saw many humans and beasts being swallowed by the cold current, turning into ice sculptures and freezing to death. Because the cold current here couldn't be isolated or blocked by any defensive items. Even if one activated the power of law, they couldn't block the invasion of the cold current. To sum it up, it ignored all defenses and was all-pervasive. So, the beasts that wandered in the central region were basically at the sovereign realm and above. Compared to the Een Devil Land and the heavy region, the Death Glacier had a large number of treasures. For example, divine herbs, divine items, and ruins. Ruins were battlefields left behind from battles between humans and ferocious beasts, or ferocious beasts against ferocious beasts. These battlefields, after being covered by ice and snow, became the treasures of the Death Glacier. After all, a sovereign realm expert would carry a large number of treasures and divine items with them. When they died, the things left behind would undoubtedly be treasures. Therefore, it was easier to obtain divine items here than the Een Devil Land and the heavy region, but it was also more cruel. For example, at this moment, Qin Feiyang and the others were in the central region and sensed several battlefields. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and didn't pay attention to the battlefields in the distance. Because they had seen too much fighting for treasures in the edge region, they couldn't care less. Besides, the strong preyed on the weak. This was the law of survival. When these people entered the Death Glacier, they should be prepared to die. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at Princess Huofeng and the others and asked, "Are you sure you want to continue to follow us? Otherwise, we're already here." Princess Huofeng said. Qin Feiyang frowned. What was this woman's purpose? Daifuka hesitated, looked at Princess Huofeng and Pyrotechnic Glow, and said, "Your Highnesses, this old man thinks that we can't continue to go deeper." Why? The brother and sister looked at him in confusion. We are different from Qin Feiyang and the others. They are human beings, we are Feng people, and they know us. If the Kirin clan knows that we broke into the Death Glacier, it will definitely arouse their hostility. Daifuku was worried. The Kirin clan? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were stunned. That's right. The owner of the Death Glacier is the Kirin clan. Daifuku nodded. Kirin, Qin Feiyang murmured. The white-eyed wolf said in surprise. Little Qinzi, we can't find Fire Kirin for a long time. Do you think it is now in the Kirin clan? Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. Fire Kirin couldn't change its appearance like Li Feng. Besides, if Fire Kirin was now in the 4 continents, it would definitely take the initiative to come to him. Because Fire Kirin was different from Li Feng. Fire Kirin had never done anything to let them down. However, after so many years, even though he, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf were famous in the Sky Cloud realm, they didn't see Fire Kirin appear. Perhaps it was as the white-eyed wolf guessed, Fire Kirin might be in the Kirin clan now. The madman pondered for a while, then turned to look at Qin Feiyang and asked, "I remember you said that the next layer of the ancient castle's seal requires you and Fire Kirin's blood essence to unlock it, right?" Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. In that case, whether it is in the Kirin clan or not, we have to go and take a look. We must succeed, we can't fail. Madman said in a powerful voice. If the core area of the Death Glacier was other races, they wouldn't think so. But if it was the Kirin clan, the meaning was completely different. There were many kinds of Kirin clan. For example, Fire Kirin, Blood Kirin, Ink Kirin, Water Kirin, Earth Kirin, Wind Kirin, Snow Kirin, and so on. Among them, Fire Kirin was the leader. If Fire Kirin really came to the Sky Cloud realm, and the Kirin clan learned of its existence, they would definitely appear immediately, and take it to the Kirin Holy Land. Your Highness, can you not be so willful? The Feng people, the Kirin clan, and the dragons are not on good terms. If we go like this, the Kirin clan will definitely think that we are provoking them. At that time, I'm afraid that even if Lord Patriarch comes personally, they might not give us face. When the Daifuka brothers heard that Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf wanted to enter the core area, they were shocked. Looking at Princess Huofeng and the madman, they tried to persuade them. It's okay. It's not like I haven't been to the Kirin Holy Land before. They didn't do anything to me. Princess Huofeng waved her hand. How can it be the same as before? In the past, it was Lord Patriarch who brought us there as guests. But now we are trespassing. These are two different natures. The two brothers were really at their wits' end. They couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf for help. Daifuku and the madman's consideration is not wrong. In fact, think about it from another perspective. If the Kirin clan trespassed into the Feng people's territory, what would the Feng people do? They would definitely catch the other party and find trouble with the Kirin clan. Qin Feiyang looked at the siblings and said with a smile, "No, we must go." Pyrotechnic Glow heard, and was a little hesitant. But Princess Huofeng decisively shook her head. She was as stubborn as a bull, leaving Qin Feiyang at his wits' end. Chapter 3608. The white-eyed wolf looked at Princess Huofeng with a cold light flashing in his eyes. He asked, "Why must I go?" Although he said this, the meaning was obvious. He was doubting Princess Huofeng's motives. "What does it have to do with you?" Princess Huofeng stared at the white-eyed wolf. "Of course it has something to do with me. This trip to the Kirin Holy Land is unpredictable. I don't want to have a disaster standing beside me." The white-eyed wolf was really straightforward. He didn't hide it at all. Princess Huofeng was about to explode with anger. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. Their eyes were shining. The white-eyed wolf had already said this, but Princess Huofeng still didn't want to leave. Why? One must know. Princess Huofeng wasn't an ordinary person. As the pearl in the palm of the Feng people, she had been doted on since she was born. How could she bear such grievances? But, although she was angry, she didn't attack. It was hard to believe that she didn't have any ulterior motives for being so patient. Qin Feiyang stopped the white-eyed wolf, who was about to speak again, and said with a smile, "Let's go. Anyway, she's not afraid. What are we afraid of?" "That's true." The white-eyed wolf nodded and glanced at Princess Huofeng. He bared his teeth and said, "When you encounter danger, don't blame us for not helping you. After all, we are not the same kind of people. We have no obligation to take care of you." "I don't need you to take care of me." Princess Huofeng snorted coldly. "Okay. With this sentence, I'm relieved. Let's go." The white-eyed wolf smiled and stepped into the central area. The wind whistled, and the cold current was bone-chilling. It was just a step away, but it was like two different worlds. The cold current in the central area was at least 10 times more terrifying than the edge area. Damn, it's too cold. When the madman stepped into the central region, he couldn't help but shiver. A layer of frost quickly condensed on his hair and eyebrows. "It is indeed a little scary." Qin Feiyang nodded. Madman looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and frowned. "Why isn't there any frost on you?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "It should have something to do with us breaking the limits of our physical bodies. After breaking through the limits of one's physical body, one's endurance would naturally become stronger. Previously, when they were at the border region, because the intensity of the cold current was relatively weak, it was within their tolerance range. There was no frost on their bodies, so they did not pay much attention to it. But now, as soon as he stepped into the central region, the frigid air currents instantly soared by more than 10 times, and the difference between the two regions immediately became apparent. The limits of the physical body. Madman looked at the surrounding glaciers and muttered, "Can the cold currents here strengthen the body?" Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were stunned. This guy also wants to break the limits of his physical body? But after thinking about it, wasn't Madman such a person? He could lose to others, but he definitely could not lose to his own people. They had already broken the limits of their physical bodies, so Madman would definitely not be willing to fall behind. It's not that easy. The cold current does have the ability to strengthen the body, but the effect is not much. Princess Huofeng said. Madman asked, "According to what you said, we can only go to the heavy region?" Not exactly. For example, if we encounter powerful heavenly lightning, it is possible to break the limits of the physical body. But no matter what the innate conditions are, it still depends on luck and perseverance. In other words, without this luck and perseverance, no matter how good the conditions are, you might not be able to break the limits of the physical body. Instead, the chances of losing your life will be higher. The Daifuka brothers explained. Let's not talk about luck first, just this perseverance. How can I be worse than them? Madman glanced at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and laughed. Don't be too confident. Back then, I saw the two of them break the limits of their physical bodies with my own eyes. That kind of pain and torture is not something an ordinary person can endure. Princess Huofeng kindly advised. Look, do I look like an ordinary person? Madman laughed arrogantly and turned to look at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, saying, You guys go to the Qilin Holy Land first, I will go to the heavy region. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other and nodded. Up to you. You really won't cry until you enter the coffin. Princess Huofeng coldly snorted. I am such a person. Madman chuckled. That's right. This is the difference between you and us. People like us, no matter what difficulties we encounter, we will not run away and face them bravely. But flowers in a greenhouse like you, whenever you encounter the slightest problem, the first thing you think of is to find a backer behind you. The white-eyed wolf looked at Princess Huofeng with eyes full of disdain. Do I? Princess Huofeng glared at the white-eyed wolf. With so many people present, he didn't know how to give her some face. He was simply a bastard. The white-eyed wolf ignored her and looked at Madman, saying, Go, we will solve the matter of the Qilin Holy Land. It's best if you can rush over, but it doesn't matter if you can't. All right. Madman decisively turned and left the central region, disappearing from their sight like lightning. Let's continue. Qin Feiyang smiled and rushed forward with the white-eyed wolf. Although the Death Glacier also had rules and restrictions, and although the cold current was bone-chilling, it was the same as the Een Demon Land. Their speed was not limited. In other words, they could fly at high speed in the air. Infuriating, really infuriating. Princess Huofeng followed behind, staring at the back of the white-eyed wolf, gritting her teeth. Actually, it's not wrong. Whether it's the dragons or the foam people, the younger generation can't compare to them in terms of perseverance. Daifuku smiled. You're still speaking up for it? Princess Huofeng was annoyed. That's right. Don't help outsiders. Pyrotechnic Glow was also extremely dissatisfied with the white-eyed wolf. Wasn't it just breaking the limit of the physical body? What was it so proud of? I'm not speaking up for it, it's the truth. If the two of you are not convinced, you can also try to break the limit of the physical body and prove yourself. Daifuku transmitted his voice. The siblings looked at each other and clenched their fists tightly, a trace of fighting spirit burning in their eyes. Xiaofu looked at the siblings and secretly said, Big brother, why are you deliberately provoking the two of them? I'm doing this for their own good. In the past, before Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, and Lunatic appeared, I thought that the two of them were already dragons and phoenixes. But now, looking at Qin Feiyang and the others, I suddenly realized that the two of them are far from enough. Daifuku transmitted his voice. So you're trying to stimulate the fighting spirit of the two of them? Xiaofu was enlightened. That's right. The two of them were born extraordinary and have great responsibilities. They must be tempered. Actually, that's what the patriarch meant. Daifuku smiled faintly. Ha! Xiaofu was surprised. Daifuku smiled and said, Think about it, with the patriarch's love for the two of them. If there was no reason, would he allow the two of them to follow Qin Feiyang and the others? Xiaofu heard this and asked, Do you mean that the patriarch is using this opportunity to train the two of them? That's right. The two of them were born with outstanding talent, and now that they've opened the door of potential, they're even more amazing. But their temperaments are too far apart. There's a saying that goes, if a jade isn't polished, it won't become a treasure. No matter how talented they are, if they aren't polished, they won't be able to take on great responsibilities in the future. Daifuku sighed. Although the flowers in the greenhouse were delicate and beautiful, they couldn't withstand the destruction of wind and rain. The patriarch had put in a lot of effort, and he only hoped that the two of them could understand. In front, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were alert and vigilant. Although their current strength was enough to suppress everything, they still didn't let down their guard. Qin Feiyang glanced at the white-eyed wolf next to him and chuckled. Why do I feel that you've become more talkative recently? The white-eyed wolf turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Really? Didn't you notice it yourself? In the past, other than those you're familiar with, you rarely quarreled with others. But now facing the Feng people. No, it's facing Princess Huofeng. You've been arguing with her for no reason. This seems a bit like you're purposely trying to make your presence known. Tell me honestly, are you interested in her? Qin Feiyang smiled mischievously. Scram. The white-eyed wolf glared at Qin Feiyang angrily and said disdainfully, "Who does she think she is? Why would I be interested in her? I just don't like the Fire Phoenix clan." You're not saying what you mean. Pyrotechnic Glow brother Daifuku is also from the Fire Phoenix clan, but why don't I see you arguing with them? Qin Feiyang smiled mockingly. The white-eyed wolf said angrily, "Because her status is different. Of course I'll argue with her." Is that really the case? Qin Feiyang laughed. Of course. Why do you like her? The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded, but the smile in his eyes was hard to conceal. There were some things that outsiders might be able to see, but the person himself might not be able to. He was sure. The white-eyed wolf was deliberately attracting Princess Huofeng's attention. However, because it was a subconscious action, even it did not realize it. The white-eyed wolf glared at Qin Feiyang and glanced at Princess Huofeng from the corner of its eyes. Would I like this woman? No, no, no. I don't want her. Rumble. Gotcha. Another few days passed. Two groups of people were fighting in front of them. The weakest among them was a peak dominator. There were a total of more than 10 people, and they were fighting over the treasures in the ruins. When they noticed that someone was approaching, they immediately stopped and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others fiercely. It's them? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Why are they at the Death Glacier again? The group's faces were filled with reverence. However, Qin Feiyang and the others did not pay attention to them and directly passed by them. What's going on? Could it be that they are heading toward the core area of the Death Glacier again? This man and wolf are really powerful. We are treading on thin ice in the forbidden area, and we are trembling with fear. However, they are strolling leisurely, as if they are taking a stroll in their backyard. They are not afraid at all. The two groups did not continue fighting. After dividing the treasures in the ruins amicably, they carefully followed behind Qin Feiyang and the others, their eyes filled with curiosity. Chapter 3609. Again. The white-eyed wolf noticed the dozen or so people following behind and frowned slightly. It was the same when they first entered the Een Devil Land, and it was the same when they entered the Heavy Domain. Being too famous was not necessarily a good thing. It doesn't matter. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Anyway, these people couldn't enter the inner area. But suddenly, he stopped and turned to look at the dozen or so people. The dozen or so people were shocked, thinking that they had angered Qin Feiyang, and hurriedly said, "Brother Qin, don't misunderstand, we have no ill intentions." "I don't have any other intentions, I just want to ask you about something." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Heard of it." The dozen or so people wiped their cold sweat. They thought that he was going to attack them, but it turned out that he wanted to ask about something. "Have you seen this person before?" Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and Qin Feng's shadow appeared. "This looks a bit familiar. I remember, isn't he that murderous demon king Qin Feng?" "Brother Qin, why are you asking about him? He has already been killed. How could he appear in the Death Glacier?" The group of people said at once. They had been in the Death Glacier all these years, so they didn't know that Qin Feng was not dead. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then waved his hand again, condensing Li Feng's original appearance, and asked, "Then have you seen this person before?" "This person? Yes. This person's killing intent is too strong, so I have a special impression of him. I met him the day before yesterday. There was a blood-red clothed old man beside him, and his killing intent was also very strong." One of the middle-aged men said. "Blood-red clothed old man?" Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. "That's right. At that time, us brothers were snatching the treasures in a relic. These two people suddenly appeared, just like the scene when you appeared today. But the difference is that we thought they would kill us to steal the treasures, so we took the initiative to attack them. But unexpectedly, although they were very strong, they didn't kill us after injuring us. They directly turned and left." The man said. How strong? White-eyed Wolf asked. The young man is a high-level sovereign. He has grasped the ultimate profundity of the law of slaughter. As for the old man, he hasn't fought much, so we don't know his abilities. However, we do know that his cultivation is that of a peak sovereign. Actually, at that time, the blood-red clothed old man wanted to kill us, but the youth strongly opposed it. The big man said. The blood-robed old man must be the blood ancestor. But he's actually a perfect sovereign. This is truly unimaginable. The white-eyed wolf whispered. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Could it be that the rumors were wrong? Was the blood ancestor not from the ancient world? That was because it was impossible for the ancient realm to have an expert at the perfection sovereign realm. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Although the origins of the blood ancestor have become confusing, Li Feng's performance has not disappointed us. He has not killed any more innocents. Actually, the burly man and the others weren't innocent, because they were the ones who attacked Li Feng first. However, Li Feng still didn't kill them. It was evident. He was indeed trying to change. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he couldn't help but smile. If Li Feng had really changed, he would naturally be happy. However, this blood ancestor was cruel and ruthless. If he continued to stay by Li Feng's side, it was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't fall again. It seemed that he had to talk to the blood ancestor if he had the chance. What did he want? Why did he choose Li Feng? Half a month later, the group didn't stop to rest and finally arrived at the inner region. There was a towering glacier in front of them. It was like a long city wall that surrounded the inner region and divided the world into two. They really came for the inner region. But the cold current in the inner region can't even last 10 breaths of time. Aren't they courting death by going in like this? The burly man and the others followed. Along the way, many people and beasts joined them. Now there were 500 to 600 people and beasts following Qin Feiyang and the others. Without exception, they were all here to join in the fun. This was because they knew that no matter where Qin Feiyang and the others went, something big would happen. Qin Feiyang. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded in front of them. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. Was there someone in the inner region? Everyone looked up and saw a fiery red figure standing in the sky above the inner region several miles away. It was a young man in his 20s with a cold face and a threatening aura. There's actually someone in the inner region? How did he resist the cold current in the inner region? Everyone was shocked. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf's pupils shrank slightly. Although he hadn't stepped into the inner area yet, he had gained experience in the Yin Demon Land and the Heavy region. He knew that the inner area and the central area were two completely different levels of danger. This person was standing in the inner region and wasn't affected by the cold current at all. It was obvious that he was from the Qilin clan. He was actually standing here waiting for them. Was this a provocation? Except for Qin Feiyang and the golden-winged wolf king, no one is allowed to step into the inner region. Of course, you have to have the ability to do so. The young man glanced at the hundreds of people and beasts behind Qin Feiyang and said domineeringly, "Does that include us?" Princess Huofeng raised her eyebrows and asked, "Of course. You people from Feng people shouldn't step into the Death Glacier," the young man said. "Then I really want to step into the inner region today and see what the consequences will be." Princess Huofeng took a step forward and landed in the sky above the inner region. Divine flames appeared all over her body, and the bone-piercing cold current was actually blocked outside. The hundreds of people and beasts behind Qin Feiyang were dumbfounded. What kind of method was this to block the cold current? This kind of divine flame actually has this ability? The white-eyed wolf murmured, and was also quite surprised. It and Qin Feiyang were naturally familiar with this scene. Back in the Heavy region, this kind of divine flame could block the attack of the strongest law. This is the Fire Phoenix flame, also known as the Fire Phoenix domain. Although the cold current of the Death Glacier is pervasive, it's useless against the divine flame of the Feng people, because this is a super forbidden technique created by us Feng people using the Phoenix divine flame. It's similar to the forbidden technique of the dragons. Daifuku explained. Super forbidden technique. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. Actually, the dragons, Feng people, and the Kirin clan all have their own forbidden techniques. You have all seen the forbidden techniques of the dragons. For example, the fire dragon domain and the golden dragon domain are both forbidden techniques. The Feng people have the fire phoenix domain and the ice phoenix domain, Daifuku said. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. The white-eyed wolf asked, since it's a forbidden technique, doesn't it have to pay the price of vitality? Yes. Her Highness usually doesn't activate the fire phoenix domain easily, but now that she saw the Kirin clan being so arrogant, she couldn't help but be competitive. Her character is still too weak. She can't keep her composure. Daifuku shook his head. Daifuku, can you not talk about me like that? Look at that person's attitude. He's simply too arrogant. Even if we barged into the Death Glacier without permission, he can't treat us like this. His arrogance shows that he doesn't put the Feng people in his eyes at all. The pyrotechnic glow snorted coldly. Daifuku couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard this. This was a bit of sophistry. Who would allow others to barge into their home? Especially their old rivals. The eldest princess of the Fire Phoenix clan. The young man opposite her saw Princess Huofeng's action, and a hint of coldness flashed in his eyes. He smiled and said, "The eldest princess is indeed courageous. Unfortunately, this isn't the heavy region. It's not your place to behave atrociously here." Boom. A monstrous aura erupted. The young man's cultivation suddenly reached the perfect sovereign realm. As he waved his hand, the law of fire appeared and turned into a monstrous wave of fire that rushed toward Princess Huofeng. Humph! Princess Huofeng snorted coldly, and also activated the law of fire, which surged forward. The two waves of fire collided, and the world suddenly rumbled. The glaciers in all directions crazily collapsed. Chapter 36:11. The battle unfolded in the inner region. In fact, Princess Huofeng was holding back her anger. She was no match for Qin Feiyang. She was no match for the white-eyed wolf either. Later, when the lunatic appeared on White Crane Island, she thought that the lunatic would not be much. However, when the lunatic displayed his terrifying strength, she realized that she was no match for him. This made her feel very frustrated. Therefore, when she saw that the Kirin clan did not give the Feng people any face, she could not help but use the other party as a punching bag. She might not be able to defeat Qin Feiyang, but she thought that she would be able to defeat him. Of course, she also wanted to prove that she was not weak. However, she had encountered a few monsters and had no choice. Boom! The devouring law roared out, and the devouring seal of the fifth ultimacy pressed down on the young man like a giant mountain. Heh! I knew that you were strong. The young man bared his teeth. Accompanied by a deafening beast roar, a huge beast appeared out of thin air. It carried a terrifying destructive force and blasted toward the Devour Seal. Destruction Law, Daifuku mumbled. Boom. The two law ultimates collided with a deafening roar. The two of them had similar cultivation and ultimates, so it was naturally difficult to determine who was stronger. However, Princess Huofeng's face was filled with a victorious smile. This was because the strongest law that she had mastered was not only the Devour Law. As a monstrous aura surged out, the Devour Law and the Karma Law's fifth ultimates were activated at the same time. The Devour Seal and the five-colored Divine Lotus were like two supreme divine artifacts that exuded an aura that could destroy the world. As the rumors say, you have mastered two ultimates. It seems that Bing Rinning's defeat was not without reason. The young man looked at the two ultimates and narrowed his eyes. It's good that you know, Princess Huofeng said coldly. As she waved her white arm, the two ultimates shattered the sky and charged toward the young man. Haha, Karma Law, Devour Law, as expected of the princess of the Fire Phoenix clan. Compared to Bing Rinning, you are much stronger. However, in front of a peerless genius like me, you are still too weak. The young man suddenly burst into laughter, his arrogance boundless. A peerless little demon. When Daifuku heard this, he seemed to have thought of something, and his gaze trembled slightly. Big brother, what's wrong? Xiaofu asked suspiciously when she noticed Daifuku's strange behavior. Last time, I heard from the patriarch that a little monster was born in the Fire Qilin clan. This person is so young, but not only has he become a peak sovereign, he has also grasped an ultimate law. Daifuku whispered. The white-eyed wolf beside him also heard Daifuku's words and asked suspiciously, "What's so monstrous about a mere ultimate law? You don't know." Apart from the ultimate law, according to the patriarch, this little monster has also comprehended a supreme profundity. Daifuku said. What? Ultimate profound meaning? This time, not only White-Eyed Wolf, but even Qin Feiyang and Xiaofu were shocked. The fifth profound meaning and the supreme profound meaning were two completely different concepts. Because the ultimate profound meaning was a threshold. If you didn't cross this threshold, you would at most be considered a genius. However, once you pass this hurdle, you would be a true peerless monster. Moreover, only those who had comprehended the ultimate profound meaning were worthy of the title of ultimate expert. But comprehending the ultimate profound meaning was relatively difficult. Ultimate laws were already very difficult to comprehend, but the ultimate profound meaning was even more difficult. It could be said that even the ultimate profound meaning of an ordinary law was extremely difficult. Similarly, if a person of the younger generation could comprehend the ultimate profound meaning of an ordinary law, it would be enough for him to be called a king among his peers. From this, one could imagine how heavy the weight of the profound meanings were. The white-eyed wolf came back to his senses and said jokingly, "If this kid is really the peerless monster that your patriarch said, then wouldn't your princess be at a disadvantage?" This was because even if this young man had only comprehended the ultimate profound meaning of an ordinary law, he could still crush the karma law and the devour law. Although the karma law and the devour law were ultimate laws, Princess Huofeng had yet to comprehend the ultimate profound meaning. Just the fifth profound meaning naturally couldn't be compared to the ultimate profound meaning. When the Daifuku brothers heard this, they silently looked at the battlefield. In the blink of an eye, heavenly fire burned the gods and demons of the world. The young man pointed at the sky, and an endless wave of fire surged out from his body and rushed into the clouds. The entire sky and earth instantly turned into a sea of fire. A vast and mighty aura spread out in the sky. Not good. He has indeed comprehended the ultimate profound meaning. Daifuku's eyes trembled. Righteous Yang Qi, turn into lightning. Heavenly fire, destroy gods and demons. The young man was enveloped in a divine radiance, as if a god had descended. As his voice fell, a heavenly fire descended from the sky, containing the power to destroy the world, and blasted toward the five-colored divine lotus and the devour seal. Crack. The two fifth profound meanings shattered on the spot. Although Princess Huofeng was protected by the Fire Phoenix domain, the backlash from the shattering of the profound meanings caused direct damage to her body. She immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and her face turned pale. "Your Highness." Daifuku stepped forward and went to rescue her. "Back off," Princess Huofeng shouted. Daifuku froze and stopped in the void. Princess Huofeng said in a low voice, "If I need your protection every time I'm in trouble, then wouldn't it be like what the white-eyed wolf said, that I'm a flower in a greenhouse?" "But," Daifuku frowned, and his face was full of worry. "Isn't this the reason why the Fire Phone people asked her to follow us? And now there's no doubt that this is an opportunity to stimulate her potential. Why should we stop her?" Qin Feiyang said lightly. Daifuku turned his head and looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. He didn't expect this guy to see through him. You have to believe in her. To be able to comprehend two ultimate laws, her talent isn't inferior to anyone. But her life has been too peaceful. Under your protection, she hasn't experienced the slightest disturbance. What she needs the most now is a desperate situation of life and death. Only then can her true potential be stimulated, and she can break through herself. Moreover, she has the protection of the Fire Phoenix domain. Even if she's hit by the heavenly fire, her life won't be in danger. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Huff. Daifuku took a deep breath and looked up at Princess Huofeng, his eyes full of anticipation. The heavenly fire shattered the sky and shook the heavens. A fatal sense of danger rose in her heart. Princess Huofeng's eyes trembled. She had never felt such despair before. Her body and mind were drowned by fear, and even breathing was difficult. Don't panic. Calm down, empty your body and mind, and find hope in the desperate situation. Suddenly, A shout sounded in Princess Huofeng's mind. Princess Huofeng's eyes trembled. She immediately closed her eyes and tried her best to forget everything. Life is full of despair. If you're trapped by despair, your heart will be in darkness. So you have to overcome despair. That voice kept echoing in Princess Huofeng's mind. Gradually, Princess Huofeng's mind was empty. She even forgot about the dangerous situation at this moment. Her expression was serene, and her sparkling skin was suffused with a hazy glow. She was as stunning and eye-catching as a fairy. This is... The Daifuku brothers looked at Princess Huofeng in surprise. In the face of such danger, she actually calmed down? It was as if she was in a deep sleep. How did she do it? But at this moment, the white-eyed wolf's mouth had an imperceptible smile. However, as someone who grew up with the white-eyed wolf, Qin Feiyang immediately noticed the smile on the white-eyed wolf's mouth. Qin Feiyang secretly found it funny. This guy was definitely secretly helping Princess Huofeng. Although he said he didn't like it, his body and heart were still quite honest. The heavenly fire was like a bolt of divine thunder, surging aggressively. Princess Huofeng's mind was empty. Her body and mind were pure. Heaven and earth as the furnace, pure yang as the fire. Hiding the divine glory of the sun, containing the righteousness of heaven and earth. This thing is the heavenly fire. Seeing that the heavenly fire was about to fall, Princess Huofeng's bright and beautiful face couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. Immediately, she slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were like two scorching suns, illuminating heaven and earth. Woo-woo. The next moment, the wind and clouds surged, and heaven and earth changed color. The sky that was originally covered by the young man's law of fire emerged again. In an instant, it occupied half of the sky, competing with the young man's law of fire. The young man's expression was dazed, full of disbelief. At this time, she actually comprehended the supreme profound of the law of fire. Heavenly fire, burn the gods and demons of the world. Heavenly fire, destroy the gods and demons. Princess Huofeng spoke. Taking a step forward, she avoided the heavenly fire that was coming at her. Following closely, with a wave of her hand, a streak of heavenly fire tore through the sky and descended from the sky, blasting toward the young man's heavenly fire. Boom! The two streaks of heavenly fire collided with a loud bang, and a destructive aura immediately surged out in all directions with this place as the center. Daifuku waved his hand, and the law of space and time emerged, condensing into an invisible barrier, blocking the aura outside. At this moment, he was very excited. He really didn't expect that the eldest princess could comprehend a supreme profound under such circumstances. Although the supreme profound of the law of fire couldn't be compared to the supreme profound of the strongest law, this move had undoubtedly stimulated the eldest princess's own potential, allowing her to successfully break through herself. This was a good start. Moreover, the power of any supreme profound should not be underestimated. At this time, the eldest princess was already a true genius of the Feng people. The #1 person of the Feng people's younger generation. People like Bing Running could only look up to her in the future. It's time for me to counterattack. A cold light flashed in Princess Huofeng's eyes, and the fifth profound of the law of devour, and the supreme profound of the law of fire were activated at the same time. The current her was like a bright star, exceptionally dazzling, and even the young man opposite her couldn't help but be stunned. Stop, this battle is considered your win. The young man sighed helplessly and waved his hand. Considered my win? Princess Huofeng raised her eyebrows. The current situation was clearly one-sided. So why did he say that she had won? It was as if he was letting her win. The 3 profound laws fell, directly drowning the young man. Your strength isn't much, but your competitiveness is impressive. The white-eyed wolf despised him. Chapter 36:12. Who doesn't have the desire to win? Let's talk about you. Your desire to win is even greater than hers. But white-eyed wolf, you brat, you're really something. You actually helped her secretly. Qin Feiyang snickered. Help her? Don't talk nonsense. Why would I help her? Don't slander my innocence. White-eyed wolf snorted coldly. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Still stubbornly refusing to admit it? Let's see how long you can pretend. Sister, you're amazing. Princess Huofeng exited the inner area and closed the Fire Phoenix domain. She looked a little older. Pyrotechnic Glow immediately went up and laughed. Of course. Princess Huofeng subconsciously glanced at White-Eyed Wolf and said proudly. This subconscious action directly confirmed that the person who secretly helped her was White-Eyed Wolf. Seeing through it, Qin Feiyang didn't say anything and looked up at the inner area. The dust and smoke dispersed. The young man appeared, but he was unscathed, because there was a fiery red barrier around him at this time. Daifuku whispered, "This is the Kirin clan's forbidden technique, Kirin domain." Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a faint smile, "It seems that none of the clans in the forbidden area are easy to provoke." These words are sarcastic. Daifuku shook his head and smiled bitterly. If it was someone else, this forbidden technique was indeed invincible. But in front of Qin Feiyang, this little guy, it was meaningless. Because even Fire Dragon's super forbidden technique couldn't hurt Qin Feiyang. A super forbidden technique was already a true forbidden technique. Except for the sovereign divine weapon, it could crush everything. Princess Huofeng, looking at the young man again. He looked at Princess Huofeng with a trace of surprise in his eyes. Suddenly, he closed the Kirin domain and stepped in front of Princess Huofeng. He smiled and said, "Or I like you. Please be my girlfriend. I promise to treat you well." What the hell? Princess Huofeng was stunned. The Daifuku brothers, Qin Feiyang, White-Eyed Wolf, and Pyrotechnic Glow were also stunned. What's going on? Why was he confessing in the middle of the fight? How direct. When Qin Feiyang came back to his senses, he couldn't help but glance at the ingrate from the corner of his eyes. He discovered that the ingrate's expression was unsightly at this moment. Interesting. Suddenly, a love rival appeared out of nowhere. "Let's see if you still want to pretend now." "You're crazy." Princess Huofeng reacted and immediately glared at the young man. "You. S. Angris. TTC, let me introduce myself. My name is Chiyu. I'm a peerless genius of the Fire Kirin clan. I'm a little genius of the Kirin clan and you're the princess of the Foam people, so we're a perfect match." Chiyu looked at her with admiration. "Get lost." Princess Huofeng's face darkened. Little genius? Perfect match? She had never seen such a shameless person. Don't be so cold. Although our two clans have always had a grudge, it doesn't affect our relationship. Besides, if we really get married, it can also ease the dispute between our two clans. The little demon Chiyu laughed mischievously. "No need." Princess Fire Phoenix turned her head away. She felt annoyed just by looking at him. "Chiyu, don't joke around. This is disrespectful to the princess of the Fire Phoenix clan." Daifuku raised his eyebrows. "I'm not joking. I mean it. I really like her. If you don't believe me, I'll ask the clan leader to propose marriage to the Foam people now." Chiyu said. "Propose marriage?" Daifuku's mouth twitched. Is this kid crazy? He's going to propose marriage before they even started? The White-Eyed Wolf suddenly asked, "Daifuku, judging from your reaction just now, you seem to know this little genius?" Qin Feiyang was stunned when he heard that. He glanced at the White-Eyed Wolf in amusement. "You can't sit still anymore, right?" Daifuku was also stunned. He glanced at Chiyu and nodded. "I do know him, but this is the first time I've seen him in person." According to the clan leader, the Fire Kirin clan views him as their future pillar, and has been carefully protecting him. "It seems that I'm quite famous. But there's no other way. It's hard for a talented and handsome person like me to be unknown. In short, being too outstanding is also a kind of trouble." Chiyu laughed proudly. "I'm convinced." Princess Huofeng shook her head and sighed. "Finally, I've seen a guy more narcissistic and shameless than the White-Eyed Wolf. Since you're convinced, then agree to marry me. Besides, look at this world. Besides me, who else is worthy of you?" Chiyu bared his teeth. "Don't push your luck." Pyrotechnic Glow glared at Chiyu. "Why is he so annoying?" "Am I? If I really push my luck and start to snatch you, wait. Who are you? Who are you to interrupt?" Chiyu raised his eyebrows and looked at Pyrotechnic Glow with disdain. When Huazihui heard this, he was instantly enraged. Daifuku stopped pyrotechnic glow and said with a smile, "As a member of the Kirin clan, you actually don't know my prince. Prince Chi is really humorous." "His prince?" Chiyu was slightly stunned and said in surprise, "Is he Wuer's brother pyrotechnic glow?" "Yes." Daifuku nodded. Chiyu quickly looked at pyrotechnic glow and said with an apologetic smile, "I'm sorry, my future brother-in-law. I'm blind. Who can accept you as my brother-in-law? Do you have any shame? Are all the members of the Fire Kirin clan like you?" Pyrotechnic glow sneered. Chiyu's eyes turned cold and he said with a smile, "Brother-in-law, you'd better watch your words. If my clansmen hear such words, I'm afraid a disaster will come." "Afraid of you?" Pyrotechnic glow sneered. "Haha. My future brother-in-law is really brave." Chiyu laughed. However, there was a trace of contempt on his face. Qin Feiyang glanced at the white-eyed wolf. When the white-eyed wolf spoke, he thought that the white-eyed wolf was going to make a move, but he didn't expect that the wolf would remain silent. He even acted as if it had nothing to do with him and didn't care. What was this guy thinking? If he liked her, just do it. Why force himself? What are you looking at? This is their business. What does it have to do with me? The white-eyed wolf noticed Qin Feiyang's gaze and immediately glared at him. Looking at the white-eyed wolf's attitude, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but waver. Had he really misunderstood the white-eyed wolf all this time? Did he really not like Princess Huofeng? He didn't understand. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. He looked up at Chiyu and said with a faint smile, "Chiyu, right?" "Yes." Chiyu nodded and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. He said with a smile, "Qin Feiyang, I've heard a lot about you. You flatter me. Compared to Prince Chi, I'm still far behind." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. Look, look, look. This is a person who knows his own limits." Chiyu laughed. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows slightly. This person seemed to be a little too arrogant, but he didn't say anything. He said with a smile, "Just now, I heard from Prince Chi that only the white-eyed wolf and I can enter the inner area. May I ask what that means?" "I just said that you know your own limits. How did you become so stupid all of a sudden? I let you and the white-eyed wolf go in so that you can see the horror of the cold current in the inner area, so that you can retreat." Chiyu sneered. "Stupid?" The Daifuku brothers, Princess Huofeng, and Pyrotechnic Glow all looked at Chiyu in astonishment. Doesn't this person know Qin Feiyang's means? How dare he provoke him again and again in public? A trace of killing intent appeared in the white-eyed wolf's eyes. He's clearly courting death. Qin Feiyang looked at Chiyu and said with a smile, "I see. It seems that I'm really stupid. I thought you were going to deny it. I didn't expect you to admit it so quickly." "You're very sensible." Chiyu nodded and praised him. Qin Feiyang chuckled and looked at Chiyu. He said, "Since I accept my own stupidity, Prince Chi, why don't you tell me where your courage to be so arrogant comes from?" The Daifuku brothers felt a chill in their hearts. There was killing intent hidden in the smile. Pyrotechnic Glow also immediately folded his hands, ready to enjoy a good show. Chiyu was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Qin Feiyang to suddenly ask such a question. "Maybe you'll tell me that your courage comes from the Kirin clan behind you. Of course, it's true that with the Kirin Holy Land behind you, you have the right to be arrogant. But in my opinion, your courage comes from your ignorance." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Chiyu's face darkened. Qin Feiyang smiled slowly and said, "Do you know how many people have been arrogant in front of me? Do you know how many people have been trampled under my feet? I don't like to cause trouble, and I don't want to make a big deal out of it. But there's a premise, which is mutual respect. But now I don't see any respect in you. Haha, you're really arrogant." Hearing this, Chiyu raised his head and laughed. "No, I'm being polite. But there's a limit to everything. If this limit is exceeded, then it's unforgivable." As Qin Feiyang's voice fell, a cold light immediately emerged in his eyes. Everyone thought that Qin Feiyang was going to attack, but Qin Feiyang grabbed the white-eyed wolf and threw him at Chiyu. "What are you doing?" The white-eyed wolf said angrily. "You're too low-key now. This is not your character." Qin Feiyang pursed his lips. The white-eyed wolf scolded angrily. "Damn, Haven't you always complained that I've caused trouble for you? It's fine now. You can make trouble. Qin Feiyang laughed. Obviously, you're too lazy to do it. The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly in his heart, looked up at Qiyu, and laughed. Arrogant, right? Well, now I'll let you taste the price of being arrogant. After that, he slapped with his paw. You're courting death. A cold light flashed in Chiyu's eyes and he threw a punch. He's going to fight the white-eyed wolf head-on. Pyrotechnic Glow was stunned. Didn't he know what happened on White Crane Island? Boom. Accompanied by a loud bang, the white-eyed wolf's terrifying strength and physical body completely crushed Qiyu. Qiyu flew out on the spot, his arm shattered, and his flesh and blood splattered everywhere. What? Qiyu was shocked. What a terrifying strength. An ant dares to jump in front of us. You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The white-eyed wolf took a step forward, activated Moment of Time, and instantly appeared behind Qiyu, and slashed with his paw. Chapter 36:13. So fast. This is the supreme mystery of the law of time. The rumors are true. The golden-winged wolf king is not someone to be trifled with. The hundreds of people and ferocious beasts that surrounded Qin Feiyang were all shocked and terrified. Boom. Faced with the white-eyed wolf's terrifying speed, Qiyu had no ability to react at all. He was blasted away on the spot, bleeding profusely. How dare you call yourself a peerless monster with such little strength? Little Qin Zi said you were ignorant. That's a compliment. The white-eyed wolf's face was full of disdain. He grabbed at the air with his claws, and the void within a radius of millions of miles immediately collapsed, turning into a giant hand that covered the sky. With a destructive aura, it slammed toward Qiyu. With another loud bang, Qiyu smashed into the glacier below like a meteorite. The supreme mystery of the law of time and space. Everyone's eyes trembled. This was a real peerless monster. In front of the golden-winged wolf king, Qiyu was simply a joke. Well done. Pyrotechnic Glow couldn't help but applaud loudly. He could finally vent the resentment that he had been suppressing in his heart. Your Highness. Daifuku stared at Pyrotechnic Glow. What? To tell you the truth, you did a good job. Pyrotechnic Glow's face was full of schadenfreude. Daifuku smiled bitterly and said, I know you feel wronged, but you are different from Qin Feiyang and the others. You are the prince of the phone people. You can't show anything. How can there be so many taboos? Besides, he came to humiliate me first. Pyrotechnic Glow snorted coldly. Daifuku looked helpless. But suddenly, he turned his head to look at Princess Huofeng, and his heart couldn't help but tremble, because he found that the way the first princess looked at the white-eyed wolf seemed to be a little different. Swish. The white-eyed wolf activated Momentary Time again, and landed in front of Qiyu. He stepped on Qiyu's head and pressed it against the ground. He sneered and said, This is the first time I've seen such a weak monster. Bastard. Qiyu roared and shouted, Don't just watch. Come out and kill it. The white-eyed wolf was taken aback. He scanned his surroundings. Was there someone else hiding in the dark? Before he finished speaking, he saw a few figures appeared in the void not far away. There were a total of 9 people. There were men and women, all of them young. Their cultivation had reached the peak dominator realm. It's them. Daifuku Qin Feiyang curiously sized up the 9 people. Their cultivations were not bad, but their eyes that looked down on everything in the world made him feel uncomfortable. Daifuku whispered, There are a total of 10 races in the Qilin race. They are the princes and princesses of the various races. So many? Qin Feiyang was surprised. The Fire Qilin is the leader, followed by the Blood Qilin, Earth Qilin, Gold Qilin, Water Qilin, Wood Qilin, Ink Qilin, Wind Qilin, Snow Qilin, and Thunder Qilin. Daifuku explained secretly. It's a little beyond my imagination. Qin Feiyang was amazed. This was not inferior to the dragons. Suddenly, a figure appeared in his mind and he asked, What about the White Jade Qilin? Daifuku said, Strictly speaking, the White Jade Qilin is a mutation, so it's not considered part of the Qilin race. Moreover, the Qilin race looks down on the mutated White Jade Qilin. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization, then frowned and said, Just because it's a mutation, they looked down on it. Of course. After all, it's not the orthodox Qilin bloodline. Daifuku nodded. Interesting. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted slightly. Look down on it, right? In the future, I will let you see the power of the White Jade Qilin. Because he had a White Jade Qilin beside him. As his most important partner, he naturally had to prove the White Jade Qilin's reputation. Kill it. Qiyu roared. The 9 people standing in the inner area immediately activated their profound laws. Qin Feiyang found that each of these people had mastered a type of supreme law. However, he did not see any supreme profound laws. Without any supreme profound laws, there was nothing to worry about. No. Even if they had supreme profound laws, these 9 people were not qualified to compete with the white-eyed wolf. The supreme profound laws of the 5 supreme laws, was it a joke to them? How dare you offend the divine power of the Qilin clan? You really don't know what death is. The 9 people roared, and all the profound laws suddenly turned into a torrent and attacked the white-eyed wolf. No matter how many there are, they are just ants. The white-eyed wolf said domineeringly. With a wave of its claws, the god of destruction appeared, stood proudly in the sky, and punched out. Rumble. Accompanied by a deafening noise. All the profound laws and magical powers were immediately annihilated. What? The supreme profound law of destruction. What kind of monster is this? Not only the hundreds of people and beasts, but even the 9 princes and princesses of the Qilin clan were shocked. Pyrotechnic Glow's heart trembled and he murmured, Sister, I suddenly realized that Brother Wolf is a perfect match for you. Princess Huofeng's cheeks turned red, and she raised her arm angrily, knocked Pyrotechnic Glow's head, and said angrily, What nonsense are you talking about? Really? Look at Brother Wolf, so domineering. Although he's usually a little mean, he's very kind. Pyrotechnic Glow lowered his head, feeling wronged. You're still talking about it. Princess Huofeng shouted angrily. Pyrotechnic Glow shrank his head, and turned to look at the Daifuku brothers. Your Highness, you can't joke about this. Daifuku said telepathically. I'm not joking. Haven't you noticed that Sister is actually interested in Brother Wolf? Pyrotechnic Glow said secretly. You're still talking about it? Daifuku's face also darkened, and he glared at Pyrotechnic Glow, then looked down at the white-eyed wolf below. To be honest, the white-eyed wolf's strength was really amazing. However, after all, it was just a wolf, and its bloodline power was much weaker than that of the Feng people. In the blink of an eye, the god of destruction shattered all the profound laws, and directly charged into the inner area. The 9 princes and princesses of the Kirin clan couldn't help but turn pale. Buzz. Almost at the same time, a domain appeared around them. This was the Kirin domain. Boom. The god of destruction attacked, but it didn't cause any damage to them. At the same time, Qiyu, who was under the foot of the white-eyed wolf, also burst into flames, and a fiery red Kirin domain appeared. The white-eyed wolf retreated a few steps, looked at the Kirin domain on the 10 people, and couldn't help but frown slightly. Qiyu got up and looked at the white-eyed wolf, his eyes flashing with killing intent, and sneered. No matter how strong you are, can you break our Kirin domain? Pyrotechnic Glow said. Brother Wolf, don't be afraid. The Kirin domain needs vitality as the price. Slowly exhaust them to death. Brother-in-law, you're courting death. Qiyu looked up at Pyrotechnic Glow, his eyes cold and piercing. The supreme law of fire activated, and a heavenly fire appeared, wildly attacking the Pyrotechnic Glow. Daifuku raised his eyebrows and activated the supreme law of time and space. The ice crystal fragments roared out like a torrent, and the heavenly fire was annihilated on the spot. Then, Daifuku looked down at Qiyu and said with a murderous aura, This is the last time. If you dare to attack Her Highness again, don't blame me for not showing mercy and killing you on the spot. Humph. Qiyu snorted, looked at the 9 people in the inner area, and shouted, Kill this stupid wolf. Let it know the price of provoking the Kirin clan. The 9 people nodded. All the laws and profound laws were activated, and with a monstrous murderous aura, they attacked the white-eyed wolf. Qindage, aren't you going to help? Pyrotechnic Glow looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Help. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh, and he said indifferently, You're underestimating your big brother wolf too much. Can a mere Chilan region withstand it? Pyrotechnic Glow was surprised. The white-eyed wolf glanced at Qi Yu and the other 9 people, then looked up at Qin Feiyang and said, "Can I really do as I please?" "Of course." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Hee hee." The white-eyed wolf smiled ferociously, and with a wave of his hand, the supreme law of time and space was activated, shattering Qi Yu and the others' laws and profound laws. Then a golden beast shadow roared out, as tall as the sky, like a divine beast descending to earth. Everyone present could not help but feel a sense of fear from the depths of their souls. What is this? Why can even this old man feel a sense of oppression? Daifuku was surprised. Not only Daifuku, but even Xiaofu, Princess Huofeng, Pyrotechnic Glow, and Qiyu felt the same. This oppression seemed to come from the bloodline power. Suddenly, they looked at the beasts behind them, and found that these beasts were already crawling on the ground, shivering. Why is this happening? It's as if the sovereign of all beasts is standing in front of me. These beasts roared in their hearts. They didn't want to crawl on the ground, but they couldn't control themselves. The golden beast shadow was like a towering mountain, almost suffocating them. Daifuku retracted his gaze and looked up at the golden beast shadow. At this moment, even he had a throbbing desire to kneel on the ground and worship it. In his mind, a terrifying thought emerged. Could it be that the bloodline power of the golden-winged wolf king was not inferior to the Feng people? It might even be above the Feng people? No. Absolutely impossible. How could there be a bloodline power that surpassed the Feng people? But the white-eyed wolf turned a blind eye to all of this. He lowered his head and looked at Qiyu grinning. Peerless little demon, right? Now, I will throw you into the abyss and make you regret provoking us for the rest of your life. Strip. With the white-eyed wolf's roar, the War Soul's third ability was activated. The third innate divine ability was the ability to strip away laws. That's right. It wanted to strip away Qiyu's law of fire. No, it wanted to strip away all of Qiyu's laws, making him feel despair and pain. With the arrival of a mighty aura, Qiyu suddenly felt the power of the various laws breaking out of his body uncontrollably. What was this? Golden-winged Wolf King, please show mercy. At this moment, there was a shout from the slaughter zone. Before the voice died away, an old woman in a fiery red robe broke through the air like lightning. Her wrinkled face was full of anxiety. Qiyueying. It is said that she is Qiyu's guardian. Daifuku's pupils contracted. Qiyu's guardian? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback and asked, "Is she the so-called follower?" "Yes." Daifuku nodded and said, "She is not weaker than me." "So what?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and took a step forward in front of Qiyueying. Qiyueying stopped and hurriedly said, "Qin Feiyang, this is a misunderstanding. Please ask the Golden-Winged Wolf King to stop." Chapter 36:14. With Qiyueying's arrival, will he give up? Princess Huofeng frowned. It should be. After all, Qiyueying is Qiyu's guardian, and is currently the strongest person here. She can completely represent the Kirin clan. Qin Feiyang still has to give her face. Daifuku whispered. However, without waiting for them to finish their words, Qin Feiyang said indifferently, "Qiyu has provoked us time and time again without any scruples. Can you just let it go with a misunderstanding?" Princess Huofeng and Daifuku heard this and looked at each other. They didn't expect him to be so domineering. He was indeed Qin Feiyang. Even if the elders of the Kirin clan came, he didn't give them any face. Qiyueying's face also sank slightly, and there was a trace of anger in her eyes. The Kirin clan was the lord of a restricted area. Even the dragons and Feng people had to give them face, let alone a mere human. This was completely challenging their dignity as the lord of the restricted area. The white-eyed wolf naturally wouldn't stop. It had always been lawless. Would it stop because of Qiyueying's arrival? Obviously not. However, many people didn't know what the white-eyed wolf wanted to do. Qiyueying said in a deep voice, "Qin Feiyang, don't go too far. We are not outside now. We are in the Death Glacier, the territory of my Kirin clan." "I know, you don't need to specifically remind me." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. If it wasn't because they were in the Death Glacier, Chiyu's provocation wouldn't be as simple as depriving him of his law force. He would end his life on the spot. Qi Yueying heard this and clenched her hands hard. My law? What the hell are you doing? Stop it! Qiyu roared in horror. But the white-eyed wolf turned a deaf ear to him. Seeing this, Qi Yueying couldn't hold it in anymore. Boom! A terrifying aura erupted as the power of the three great laws roared out. They were the law of fire, the law of thunder, and one of the strongest laws of nature, the law of death. Since you're giving my Qilin clan face, then don't blame me for being impolite. As Qi Yueying's voice fell, the three great laws soared into the sky. The three great profound meanings were revealed, emitting a world-destroying divine might. So, you've grasped three profound meanings. No wonder you're so arrogant. Qin Feiyang suddenly smiled. You asked for it. Qi Yueying said coldly. Her three supreme profound meanings immediately shot towards Qin Feiyang with an overflowing aura. Heaven and earth trembled involuntarily. That's all. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The law of karma and the law of destruction, the two supreme profundities, appeared out of nowhere and crushed everything in their path. Accompanied by a loud bang, the law of thunder and the law of fire were shattered on the spot. Then the two supreme profundities blasted towards Qi Yueying's law of death. Yet another loud sound rang out. How could a mere paramount profound of the law of death possibly withstand two paramount profound of the supreme laws of death? It immediately collapsed in the void. Then, the two supreme profundities charged towards Qi Yueying. The law of karma and the law of destruction are indeed as powerful as the rumors say. Qi Yueying's face darkened. She had never seen Qin Feiyang's strength with her own eyes before. She had only heard a thing or two. At first, she thought it was a little exaggerated. How could a human comprehend two supreme profundities at such a young age? But she didn't expect the rumors to be true. The current Qin Feiyang had become an ultimate expert that even the forbidden zones couldn't ignore. Boom! Just as the two supreme profundities were about to attack, Qi Yueying activated the Qilin domain and blocked the two supreme profundities. Then, a terrifying aura emerged from her body. Ruler divine weapon. That's right. The aura coming from Qi Yueying's body was the aura of a ruler divine weapon. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he stared at Qi Yueying and said, Are you sure you want to activate the ruler divine weapon? Qi Yueying looked at Qin Feiyang's eyes and couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. It was as if a terrifying demon was about to awaken. She couldn't help but gulp. She turned to look at Qi Yu, who was in extreme pain. Her heart was burning with anxiety. If she didn't activate the ruler divine weapon, how could she save His Highness? Moreover, even if she activated the ruler divine weapon, it would be useless, because she only brought one ruler divine weapon. Brother Qin, please calm down. Suddenly, a hoarse laugh was heard. An old man with a white beard stepped through the air and landed next to Qi Yueying. It's you. Qin Feiyang was shocked. That's right. This person was the storyteller from the tea abode. That's me. The white-bearded old man nodded and smiled. Qin Feiyang looked the white-bearded old man up and down for a while, and said with a faint smile, I guessed you were not simple, but I didn't expect you to be from the Kirin clan. I believe Brother Qin also knows that once the people of the forbidden area are exposed to the outside world, it will inevitably cause a sensation. So I didn't mean to hide it. I hope you can forgive me. The white-bearded old man smiled apologetically. Is that so? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Since the white-bearded old man was from the Kirin clan, then the young master and Xiaoying of the tea abode were naturally from the Kirin clan. The white-bearded old man smiled embarrassedly. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, This old man knows that even if this old man were to step forward, Brother Qin might not give this face. So this old man won't say any useless nonsense. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, You have a little self-awareness. The white-bearded old man laughed involuntarily and his face became slightly serious. Although Brother Qin won't give me face, I believe you will give it some face. Qin Feiyang frowned. The white-bearded old man waved his hand, and the phantom of a fire Kirin appeared. Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly trembled. Although fire Kirins looked similar, he could recognize the one in front of him at a glance. It was the fire Kirin he had been looking for, because this fire Kirin had always given him an inexplicable sense of familiarity. This was something that other fire Kirins could not replace. Is it? The white-eyed wolf also stared at the fire Kirin phantom, his eyes full of surprise. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. The white-bearded old man smiled. Brother Qin, will you give me face? Qin Feiyang was silent. Suddenly, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Are you using it to threaten me? Threaten? The white-bearded old man was stunned and hurriedly waved his hand. I wouldn't dare. It lives better than anyone in our Kirin clan. It can even be said that its status in the Kirin sacred ground is higher than Qiyu. Qin Feiyang was taken aback. How could it have such a high status? The white-bearded old man said, if this old man has half a lie, I will be punished by the heavens. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered and nodded. Okay, I will believe you for the time being, but I have always abided by a principle. Since you have done something wrong, you have to pay the price. After that, Qin Feiyang turned to look at the white-eyed wolf and said, deprive Qiyu of the law of fire. As for the other princes and princesses, deprive them of a small realm of cultivation. Boring. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. He said that he could do whatever he wanted, but he still had to show mercy. However, he also knew that there was no other way. After all, the other party had already used the fire Kirin. He could not give face to others, but he had to give face to the fire Kirin. Deprive the law of fire? Deprive cultivation. Not far away, the hundreds of people and beasts all looked at the white-eyed wolf in surprise. How could such a thing be done? But soon, the truth was presented in front of them. Not only was Qiyu's law of fire forcibly deprived, but the other 9 people's cultivation was also deprived. Originally, they were all in the perfect dominator realm, but now they directly fell to the greater dominator realm. Everyone present was dumbfounded by what they saw. What kind of monster was this? It actually had such a heaven-defying ability. Even the Daifuka brothers, the white-bearded old man, and Qi Yueying couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. In terms of strength, Qin Feiyang now surpassed the white-eyed wolf. But, in terms of terrifying means, the white-eyed wolf far surpassed Qin Feiyang. Not to mention provoking it, it was best to take a detour when seeing it. My law of fire. My cultivation. Qiyu and the others didn't believe it at first and thought it was just to scare them. Because they didn't believe that there would be such a heaven-defying battle soul in this world. But when they saw that the law of fire and cultivation had not recovered for a long time, their bodies suddenly couldn't help but tremble. Why was Qiyu called a peerless monster? The reason was, not only did he comprehend the law of destruction, but he also comprehended the supreme profound of the law of fire. But now, the law of fire was deprived. To comprehend a supreme profound was more difficult than ascending to the heavens. This was not only a kind of glory, but also something to prove one's value. But now, glory, status, and the pride of a monster were ruthlessly destroyed. How could he not be angry? Bastard, I'm going to kill you. With a roar, like a mad beast, he pounced on the white-eyed wolf, his eyes full of resentment. The other 9 people also had a look of anger. Although they were only deprived of a small realm of cultivation and didn't lose their law of fire, to these high and mighty princesses and princes, this was a great humiliation. Moreover, in the sovereign realm, cultivation was also very important. For example, if they both comprehended the supreme profound or supreme profound, the person with the higher realm would completely crush the other. So seeing Qiyu's actions, the 9 people also pounced on the white-eyed wolf without care, their faces full of resentment. A bunch of ants want to overturn the heavens. The white-eyed wolf's face was full of disdain. He activated momentary time, and in the blink of an eye, the 10 people were sent flying and smashed into the glacier below in a sorry state. Qi Yueying came back to her senses and rushed to Qiyu's side. She looked up at the white-eyed wolf and shouted, Golden-winged wolf king, you and I can't exist together. You. The white-eyed wolf smiled contemptuously and said indifferently, if it weren't for the fire Qilin, do you think Qiyu would be able to keep the other law of fire? Hearing this, Qi Yueying's body and mind trembled. The fire phoenix first princess and the others were also bewildered. Could it be that this wolf cub planned to deprive Qiyu of all the law of fire from the beginning? Don't say. With this wolf cub's personality, it was really possible that he would do such a thing. Chapter 36:15. Irreconcilable. Are you serious about this sentence? Just when the group of people were surprised, a flat voice sounded. Although the voice was flat, everyone present could feel a shocking chill. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang. Because the person who spoke was Qin Feiyang. At this moment, Qin Feiyang looked down at Qi Yueying. In his calm eyes, there seemed to be a storm. Qi Yueying looked at Qin Feiyang's eyes at this time, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of fear. Let me ask you, are you serious about this sentence? Qin Feiyang spoke again, still as calm as ever, but the atmosphere here instantly became extremely dignified, even suffocating. Qi Yueying looked at this scene, and wanted to raise her head and puff out her chest to say yes. But she seemed to have lost her courage and didn't have the courage. The white-bearded old man saw that the situation was not good and quickly stepped forward with a smile. Brother Qin, it is still waiting for you in the Qilin Holy Land, and in addition to it, there are 3 of your old friends. The so-called it was naturally the Fire Qilin. 3 old friends. Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. The white-bearded old man nodded, opened a space-time transmission artifact, stepped aside and said with a smile, Brother Qin, Brother Wolf King, please. The white-eyed wolf stepped beside Qin Feiyang and looked at the white-bearded old man with a frown. Are you sure you are not fooling us? Can't we trust each other more? The white-bearded old man smiled bitterly. Trust you? The white-eyed wolf sneered. None of these people in the forbidden area were trustworthy. Let's go and have a look. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Wasn't the purpose of this trip the Fire Qilin? Now that there was this opportunity, naturally, he would go to the Qilin Holy Land to have a look. Qin Dage, what about us? Pyrotechnic Glow hurriedly said. Qin Feiyang glanced at Princess Huofeng and the others before turning to the white-bearded old man. The white-bearded old man laughed hoarsely, since Brother Qin brought him here. He is naturally an honored guest of my Qilin clan. You sure have a lot of face. Princess Huofeng pouted. Even she, the eldest princess of the Fire Phoenix clan, could not compare to Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. This made her very unconvinced. Immediately after, they stepped into the space-time teleportation divine artifact. The white-bearded old man glanced at Qi Yu and the others, shook his head, and ran in after them. Of all the people he could provoke, he just had to provoke Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Wasn't he just asking to be humiliated? I won't let them off. Absolutely not. Qi Yu stared at the dissipating space-time teleportation divine tool, with a ferocious expression. Yes. All of you must die. Killing intent flashed in the eyes of the other 9 people. Qi Yueying glanced at the 10 people and raised her head to look at the people and beasts who were watching. Suddenly, killing intent surged in her eyes. Such a shameful scene must not be spread out. Boom. Following closely, she was like a demon king, activating the 3 profound meanings and killing hundreds of people and beasts. You can't beat Qin Feiyang and the golden-winged wolf king, so you're venting your anger on us? Is there any justice? Run. Hundreds of people and beasts panicked and fled frantically. However, none of them had mastered the profound meaning, so how could they escape from Qi Yueying's pursuit? In just a few breaths, hundreds of people and beasts had lost their lives. Blood flowed like a river, like an Azura purgatory. Go back and find the patriarch to seek justice for you. Qi Yueying waved her hand and swept up Qi Yu and the others, disappearing into the depths of the inner area like lightning. But they didn't know. Not long after they left, an old man and a young man walked out of an ice valley. Both of them were wearing blood-red clothes. Their blood-red hair fluttered in the cold wind, and their bodies emitted a monstrous killing intent. That's right. These 2 people were Li Feng and Blood Ancestor. Li Feng looked at the inner area and said in a deep voice, Why did you stop me? Blood Ancestor asked. Then I want to ask you, why did you kill Qi Yu and the others? Didn't you promise the golden-winged wolf king that you wouldn't kill the innocent? They wanted to kill Qin Dage and the wolf king. That's why I wanted to kill them. And this shouldn't be considered killing the innocent. Li Feng said. It seems that you really care about them. Blood Ancestor looked deeply at Li Feng and sighed. Of course. Whoever dares to hurt them, I'll be the first to disagree. Li Feng's voice was sonorous and powerful. Blood Ancestor was silent for a long time before asking, since you care about them so much, why don't you go find them? Why do you keep following me? I'm too weak. I don't want to drag them down. Moreover, my notoriety is widespread now. If I go with them, I'll definitely implicate them. Li Feng lowered his head and said, this is just your wishful thinking. They might not care about your current fame, and they won't think that you'll implicate them. Blood Ancestor was silent for a moment before sighing. Actually, no matter what you do now, I won't stop you. What's the use of saying this now? Li Feng shook his head. All right. Blood Ancestor glanced at Li Feng and said with a smile, I stopped you just now because I don't want to expose my identity too early. What's your identity? Li Feng frowned. Didn't we agree that I'll tell you when you break through to the Sovereign Realm? In short, the Qilin clan is different from the Heavenly Hall. The people of the Heavenly Hall don't know my origin, but the Qilin clan does. If this Exalted's identity is to be exposed now, both you and this Exalted will be met with a calamity. So no matter what you want to do, you have to endure it. Blood Ancestor warned. Li Feng clenched his hands and said gloomily, I've been enduring it since Cloud Mountain Village was destroyed. I know this is unfair to you. But you have to believe in me. Sooner or later, you will become the strongest existence in this world. Blood Ancestor smiled slightly. All of a sudden he seemed kind and benevolent. At the same time, an endless mountain range was located in the core area of the Death Glacier. Here, the mountains and rivers were beautiful, and the vegetation was lush. Towering peaks towered into the sky. Clouds and mist lingered in the mountains, and spirit energy rose, as if it was a celestial mountain. This place was the Qilin sacred land that was unknown to the world. An elegant courtyard was located somewhere in the mountains. It was quaint and had a pleasant scenery. In front of the courtyard, a group of people stood together and looked around. It was Qin Feiyang and the others. Please help yourselves. The white-bearded old man looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said with a smile. Then he turned around and flew away like lightning. What the hell? The white-eyed wolf frowned. Didn't they say that they were honored guests? Why did they just leave them here? Princess Huofeng said indifferently. Letting you enter the Qilin sacred land is already the greatest respect to you. Is the Qilin sacred land that great? If it weren't for the fire Qilin, I wouldn't have come even if you invited me. The white-eyed wolf had a look of disdain. Princess Huofeng said angrily. Can you not always be so arrogant? Although you and Qin Feiyang are indeed very strong now, in the eyes of the few forbidden zones, you are nothing at all. I am so arrogant. If you don't like it, then don't look. Besides, who is the one who is shameless enough to follow us? The white-eyed wolf despised him. You. Princess Huofeng glared at the white-eyed wolf. Stop, stop. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf and Princess Huofeng with a rather helpless expression. They were really a pair of quarrelsome lovers. He said, since we are here, let's just take it easy. After saying that, he entered the courtyard. In the courtyard there was a small bridge over flowing water, and hundreds of flowers were blooming. Qin Feiyang did not enter the attic inside. Seeing a pavilion on the side, he walked in, took out a tea set, and began to make tea. Wouldn't it be a waste if such a beautiful and quiet environment was not accompanied by a pot of good tea? Princess Huofeng glared at the white-eyed wolf fiercely, and also walked into the pavilion with the Daifuku brothers. Pyrotechnic Glow came up to the white-eyed wolf and said with a smile, Brother Wolf, don't mind her. My sister is such a person. You have to give in to her. Since seeing the white-eyed wolf's means, Pyrotechnic Glow was in awe of the white-eyed wolf. Why should I give in to her? The white-eyed wolf snorted and took out a jar of unparalleled divine brew. When he opened it, an intoxicating wine fragrance immediately wafted out. Pyrotechnic Glow's eyes lit up and he hurriedly said, Yes, 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 why should we men give in to women? Men have to show their authority and not let women be too arrogant. The white-eyed wolf was stunned. He turned his head and glanced at Pyrotechnic Glow. He laughed and said, You're a promising child. Hee hee. Pyrotechnic Glow chuckled and looked at the white-eyed wolf. Brother Wolf, what kind of divine brew is this? It looks very tempting. The white-eyed wolf's face darkened. After praising him for so long, it turned out that he was here for the unparalleled divine brew. Brother Wolf, we are brothers, right? Brothers should share blessings and misfortunes. Pyrotechnic Glow smiled fawningly. The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. Even he felt a little ashamed of this guy's shamelessness. He simply took out a jar of unparalleled divine brew and threw it to Pyrotechnic Glow. Pyrotechnic Glow, what are you doing? Seeing this, Princess Huofeng immediately glared at Pyrotechnic Glow. Pyrotechnic Glow shrank his neck and immediately hid behind the white-eyed wolf. He looked at Princess Huofeng pitifully and begged, "Sister, can't I just have one jar?" "No," Princess Huofeng said angrily. "Why are you afraid of her? She can control the heavens and the earth. Can she control your fart? What kind of man are you? Have some backbone." The white-eyed wolf glared at him. Pyrotechnic Glow said aggrievedly, "Brother, you don't know. This sister of mine is a tigress. She has bullied me since I was young." "Poor thing." The white-eyed wolf looked at Pyrotechnic Glow sympathetically and said proudly, "It's okay. I will protect you from now on." "Thank you, brother." Pyrotechnic Glow smiled. In the pavilion, seeing this scene, Princess Huofeng was so angry that her teeth itched. Daifuku shook his head and laughed. He advised, "Princess, don't restrict His Highness outside. Give him some face." "You are still speaking for him? It's not like you don't know his personality. If you relax a little, he will take a yard after taking an inch." Princess Huofeng was annoyed. "He won't. After all, he is no longer a child." Dafu waved his hand and raised his head to look at the indifferent and leisurely Qin Feiyang. He asked, "Brother Qin, you've offended the 10 great clans of the Qilin clan in one go. Don't tell me you're not nervous at all." "Why should I be nervous? They were wrong in the first place." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "That may be the case, but in this world, not everyone is willing to reason with you." There was a trace of worry on Daifuku's face. "First it was the dragons, then it was you Feng people. Even if there is another Kirin clan now, what does it matter?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He poured 3 cups of tea and pushed them in front of Daifuku and the other 2. He said with a smile, "Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earthweir. As long as you have confidence, there is nothing you can't overcome." Daifuku and the other 2 looked at each other. Such a disposition to adapt to circumstances was really beyond their reach. Chapter 36:16. At the same time, in another courtyard, a middle-aged man in a long robe sat beside the coffee table. There was also a pot of tea on the coffee table. There was also an incense burner beside it that emitted wisps of smoke. The middle-aged man was about 1.8 meters tall and had a weathered face with white hair at his temples. He leaned against the chair with his eyes closed, and his calm expression was like a well. The aura on his body was also very weak, but it gave off a strong sense of oppression. "Patriarch." The white-bearded old man walked to the door and bowed respectfully. That was right. The person lying on the chair was the patriarch of the Fire Qilin race. The patriarch did not open his eyes and asked indifferently, "They have already left the Death Glacier?" "No." The white-bearded old man shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Not only did they not leave the Death Glacier, they even came to our Qilin's sacred land." "No." The patriarch was stunned and slowly opened his eyes, revealing 2 fiery eyes. He looked at the white-bearded old man and asked, "Didn't I ask you to send them out of the Death Glacier? Why did you bring them to the Qilin's sacred land?" "There's nothing I can do about it." The white-bearded old man sighed. "What happened?" The Fire Qilin patriarch was suspicious. The white-bearded old man explained how Qi Yu and the others made things difficult for Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. He sighed. "If I didn't bring them to the Qilin's sacred land, Qi Yu and the others would definitely not have survived. A bunch of fools. I warned them not to provoke that man and wolf, but they refused to listen." The patriarch's eyes were filled with anger as he asked, "How are Qi Yu and the others now?" "Not good. Prince Qi Yu's fire laws were stripped away. The other 9 princes and princesses were also stripped of a small cultivation realm. The white-bearded old man sighed. The patriarch frowned and said, "They even dared to hurt the princes and princesses of our Qilin race. They are indeed courageous." The white-bearded old man said with a worried expression, "But Qin Feiyang and the golden-winged wolf king's actions will undoubtedly anger the patriarchs of the 9 clans and your younger brother. They are not easy to deal with. Let them do as they please. I don't care anyway." The Fire Qilin patriarch waved his hand. "You don't care?" The white-bearded old man was stunned. "Yes." The Fire Qilin patriarch nodded and mocked. "Do you know who told us not to attack Qin Feiyang now?" "Wasn't it you?" The white-bearded old man asked. "Me? I don't have that ability yet. The one who gave the orders behind the scenes was our ancestor, the Qilin master." The Fire Qilin patriarch smiled faintly. "What? Why would the ancestor give such an order?" The white-bearded old man was surprised. "It should be related to it. I heard that a few days ago, the ancestor, the Dragon King, and Fengho's consciousness gathered on Sky Cloud Island. It seems that they have decided not to have any conflicts with Qin Feiyang and the others for 1,000 years. So if I interfere now, it will definitely arouse the ancestors' dissatisfaction. As for the patriarchs of the 9 clans and my younger brother, they have become more and more arrogant in recent years. It is indeed time to frustrate their arrogance. Let's go. Since the distinguished guests have come, we will naturally entertain them well." The Fire Qilin patriarch stood up and smiled. "What about it? Qin Feiyang and the golden-winged wolf king are coming for it. Shouldn't we inform it to come?" The white-bearded old man asked. "We don't need to inform it. When the matter blows up, it will naturally appear." The Fire Qilin patriarch smiled faintly. "What? How dare you deprive my son of the power of the law? This is simply unforgivable." On the other side, a middle-aged man was furious. "Damn you, Qin Feiyang, golden-winged wolf king. I will not rest until you die." At the same time, furious roars could be heard coming from the other 9 clans' ancestral grounds. In the pavilion, the fragrance of tea filled the air. The fragrance of the wine was intoxicating. "Distinguished guests, please forgive us for not going out to welcome you." Accompanied by a faint laughter, the Fire Qilin patriarch and the white-bearded old man descended into the courtyard and smiled apologetically at everyone in the pavilion. "He is the patriarch of the Fire Qilin clan." Daifuka secretly introduced Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, then stood up and looked at the Fire Qilin patriarch. He cupped his hands and said, "It should be us apologizing to the patriarch. We did not inform you in advance and trespassed into the Qilin's sacred land. Please forgive us. We are all old friends. There is no need to be so polite." The Fire Qilin patriarch walked into the pavilion. "Greetings, uncle." Princess Huofeng and Pyrotechnic Glow bowed. "Not bad, not bad. The last time I saw you, you were only at the 9 Heavens realm. Now both of you are peak sovereigns. Looks like your father has spent a lot of effort on you." The Fire Qilin patriarch smiled as he sized up the siblings. "We have embarrassed ourselves, uncle. No matter how good we are, we can't compare to even a fraction of Big Brother Xiaoyan." Princess Huofeng waved her hand in a gentle and courteous manner. "Don't talk about that kid. Just mentioning him gives me headaches. He only knows how to fiddle with those useless toys of his. He has no ambition at all." The Fire Qilin patriarch waved his hand in annoyance. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and said with a smile, "Both of you are famous. Now that I have met you, you are indeed dragons and phoenixes among men." The white-eyed wolf glanced at the Fire Qilin patriarch and continued drinking. Qin Feiyang cupped his fists and said with a smile, "This junior dares not accept senior's praise. I hope senior won't blame me for taking the liberty of visiting." "Look at what you're saying. It is the Qilin clan's honor to have young brother here. How can I blame you? Come, come, come. Don't be so polite. Please take a seat." After exchanging some pleasantries, the Fire Qilin patriarch walked to the stone table and started entertaining Qin Feiyang's group. The white-eyed wolf transmitted, "Little Qin Zi, his attitude is better than I expected. Is he plotting something? Let's play it by ear." Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered as he spoke. He looked at the Fire Qilin Patriarch and said with a smile, "Senior, I believe you already know the purpose of this junior's visit, right?" "Yes." The Fire Qilin Patriarch nodded. What a straightforward young man to mention the Fire Qilin Patriarch. Then why isn't this junior's old friend here? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The Fire Qilin Patriarch smiled and said, "He's in seclusion. It's really not good to disturb him, so I can only ask you to wait patiently." Seclusion? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. Since he was in seclusion, why did he ask the white-bearded old man to pick them up? Wait, could it be that the white-bearded old man didn't come to pick them up? Instead, he came to stop them from entering the Qilin Holy Land? The white-bearded old man smiled apologetically and said, "Brother Qin, Brother Wolf King, to tell you the truth, in fact, I came to find you this time to send you out of the Death Glacier." Sure enough, Qin Feiyang's heart skipped a beat. He asked suspiciously why. "Because your arrival in the Qilin Holy Land will affect the balance of the forbidden areas." The white-bearded old man sighed. "Balance?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "Yes." The white-bearded old man nodded and then said, "Why don't you think about it? If the dragons and the Feng people know that you have entered the Qilin Holy Land, what will they think?" "The Qilin race is also afraid of the Feng people and the dragons?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "It's not that they are afraid, but they don't want to cause unnecessary misunderstandings." The white-bearded old man shook his head. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "In that case, Qi Yu and the others have helped us. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't have the chance to enter the Qilin Holy Land." "That's right." The white-bearded old man nodded and smiled bitterly. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. "Then this is a little awkward. They have helped me so much, but I will let the white-eyed wolf deprive them of their laws and cultivation." The white-bearded old man was speechless. "Do you look awkward at all?" He was clearly mocking them. "No matter what, since you have come to the Qilin Holy Land, you are my Qilin race's guests." The Fire Qilin Patriarch smiled, full of friendliness and goodwill. "Senior, thank you for your kindness." Qin Feiyang smiled, but a hint of suspicion flashed in his eyes. He transmitted his voice, "Daifuku, what's going on? The white-eyed wolf deprived Chiyu of his laws of fire, and he is still so friendly to us?" Daifuku secretly said, "Chiyu is not his son. Of course he won't be angry." "Not his son?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. He thought that Chiyu was the Patriarch's son. Chiyu is the Patriarch's nephew. Chiyu's father is the Patriarch's younger brother. Although they are a family, you also know that no matter where, there will be all kinds of unknown disputes. The Fire Qilin race is no exception. Daifuku secretly explained. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. Although Daifuku said it very vaguely, as long as one was not a fool, one could understand that the Fire Qilin Patriarch was not on good terms with his younger brother. As for the Patriarch, he indeed has a son. Just now, the princess mentioned that his name is Qi Xiaoyan. However, this Qi Xiaoyan's personality is a little strange. Daifuku said. "His personality is a little strange?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. What did he mean? Qi Xiaoyan's talent is outstanding, and he is publicly acknowledged as the #1 monster of the Fire Qilin race. Moreover, as the only son of the Fire Qilin Patriarch, he should work hard to become the next successor. However, he is indifferent to fame and fortune, and he doesn't care about anything. "Oh right. He has the same hobby as you." Daifuku transmitted his voice. "What hobby?" Qin Feiyang was curious. Daifuku secretly said, "Drinking tea, cultivating tea trees." Drinking tea, cultivating tea trees? When Qin Feiyang heard this, he immediately lowered his head and pondered. Wait a minute. Could this Qi Xiaoyan be the owner of the tea house? Because the white-bearded old man was here. He really hit it well. But why did this Qi Xiaoyan go to the eastern continent to set up a tea house? Could it be that he wanted to understand his situation? Boom. Just as Qin Feiyang was pondering, a terrifying aura rolled over from all directions. Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, and Princess Huofeng raised their heads and scanned the surrounding void. They frowned slightly. The aura was aggressive, and they came with ill intentions. The Fire Qilin Patriarch and the white-bearded old man looked at each other, and a flash of light flashed past their eyes. Chapter 36:17. Whoosh! The first to descend was a middle-aged man. His tall and sturdy body exuded a valiant aura. Although he was stronger than the Fire Qilin Patriarch, their facial features were extremely similar. Beside the middle-aged man, there was a young man. No one was unfamiliar with this young man. It was Qiyu. Obviously. The middle-aged man was the younger brother of the Fire Qilin Patriarch. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at the middle-aged man, and their pupils constricted slightly. Although the middle-aged man's cultivation was also at the perfection sovereign realm, they could feel a fatal danger from this person. As everyone knew, there were also differences in strength among the perfection sovereign realm. Firstly, they had yet to comprehend the Supreme Profound. There were two differences in this. The first type of person, the 6 types of laws that he had mastered, were all ordinary laws. This was the most ordinary perfection sovereign realm. Such perfection sovereign realm experts were everywhere in the sky cloud realm. Especially the various forbidden areas, there were as many as the hairs on an ox. The second type of person was the perfection sovereign realm expert, who had comprehended the Supreme Profound. These people were rare geniuses. Each of them was worth a faction's time and effort to nurture. Secondly, they had comprehended the Supreme Profound. The Supreme Profound was naturally another step. Those who had comprehended the Supreme Profound were already worthy of the title of omnipotent. However, this step, the difference in strength, was even more obvious. There were the Supreme Profound of ordinary laws, and the Supreme Profound of the Supreme Profound of the Supreme Profound. As the number of Supreme Profound increased, the strength and status would be stronger. Let's not talk about the white-eyed wolf. Let's talk about Qin Feiyang. He who had mastered 2 Supreme Profound of the Supreme Profound of the Supreme Profound was already considered a cornerstone among the omnipotent. Finally, there was no doubt that he had comprehended the Supreme Profound. A giant at this level could no longer be measured by the omnipotent. He was already standing at the top of this world, overlooking all living things in the world, and killing everything with a thought. However, whether or not the ultimate profound meaning truly existed had not been proven yet, because until now, Qin Feiyang had not heard of anyone who had mastered the Supreme Profound. Speaking of which, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were already so strong, but this middle-aged man in front of them actually made them feel a sense of fatal danger. One could imagine how terrifying his strength was. If he was not mistaken, the middle-aged man had at least mastered 2 supreme profundities of the supreme laws. Look carefully. Here, at the very least, there could be more. Qiyu pointed at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and roared bitterly, "Father, it's them!" The middle-aged man stared at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf with a cold gleam in his eyes. The Fire Qilin Patriarch looked at the middle-aged burly man and said suspiciously, "Qi Xiong, what are you doing? How can a dignified senior figure of the Qilin clan be so lacking in etiquette and disturb a distinguished guest who has come to visit the Qilin Holy Land?" Honored guest? Etiquette. When Qi Xiong heard this, he was instantly furious and roared, "I don't believe that old Bai didn't tell you when he came back." Qin Feiyang and the golden-winged wolf king were at the edge of the inner area and forcibly took away Er's law of fire. "Oh, I know about this." The Fire Qilin Patriarch nodded. "Since you know, why do you still treat them as honored guests? They're clearly here to provoke us. Is your nephew. Whether it's for public or private reasons, you should seek justice for him." Qi Xiong's face was gloomy. "Indeed. However, our Qilin clan should distinguish between right and wrong. This matter is not Qin Feiyang and the golden-winged wolf king's fault. It's Qiyu and the other little guys who provoked us first. Whether it's for personal reasons or not, I can't help them." The Fire Qilin Patriarch sighed. "You." Qi Xiong glared at the Fire Qilin Patriarch. "Lord Qi Xiong, you can't blame the Patriarch for this. After all, we were in the wrong. If we still look for Qin Feiyang and the golden-winged wolf king, won't the 10 of them think that the Qilin clan is a bunch of ignorant people?" said the white-bearded old man. "Shut up. Do you think you're qualified to speak here?" shouted Qi Xiong as he looked at the white-bearded old man with disdain. The Fire Qilin patriarch frowned and said angrily, Qi Xiong, stop messing around. Although Old Bai is not a member of our clan, he is Xiaoyun's teacher. Even I have to show him some respect. Teacher? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at the white-bearded old man. They had not expected this old man to have such an identity. He was quite amazing. Qi Xiaoyun was the son of the Fire Qilin patriarch. As Qi Xiaoyun's teacher, his status in the Qilin Holy Land was naturally high. He was definitely comparable to a grand elder like Qi Xiong. Moreover, his strength was probably no weaker than the Fire Qilin patriarch. It would seem they had severely underestimated this old man. But facing the Fire Qilin patriarch's rebuke, Qi Xiong didn't put it in his eyes. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the ingrate coldly and said with a murderous aura, No matter what, you can forget about leaving the Qilin sacred land alive today. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf's hearts trembled. This was a sign that they were about to shed all pretense of cordiality. But then again, they did not have any friendship with the Qilin clan in the past, so there was no such thing as shedding all pretense of cordiality. One could only say that Qi Xiong was being unreasonable. As for the Fire Qilin patriarch, although he had been speaking on their behalf, Qin Feiyang, who was used to fighting against each other, could tell with a single glance that the Fire Qilin patriarch was not sincerely helping them. One could even say that the Fire Qilin patriarch was using them. Facing the overbearing Qi Xiong, Qin Feiyang took a sip of his tea and said with a smile, Since you are being unreasonable, I have nothing else to say. Come at me if you have any tricks up your sleeve. What? The Fire Qilin patriarch, the white-bearded old man, and Princess Huofeng looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. They had thought that Qin Feiyang would compromise. After all, they were not facing a small character like Qi Yu, but a super strong man like Qi Xiong. But they had never expected that. Qin Feiyang would actually directly clamor. How should they put it? Tough enough. Qi Xiong was also stunned, because even he thought that, being in the Qilin Holy Land, even if Qin Feiyang had reason and evidence, he would definitely bow his head and apologize and beg him to let him go. However, he did not expect that the other party would be so arrogant and openly challenge him, a super strong man. Haha. He could not help but laugh. What an arrogant human being. Being in the Qilin Holy Land, he was still so arrogant. Did he really think that he would not dare to make a move? Whoosh! At this time, accompanied by bursts of air-breaking sounds, more than a dozen people came aggressively. They were the patriarchs of the 9 clans. Every single one of them exuded an unfathomable aura. They were like god kings, causing the world to tremble involuntarily. The 9 people who came with Qi Yu before were also beside them at this moment, looking at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf with hatred. One of the old men, with his hands behind his back, looked up at Qi Xiong and asked suspiciously, Qi Xiong, why are you laughing like this? You don't know, but this kid who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth actually challenged me. Qi Xiong laughed loudly, completely unable to control himself. What? The patriarchs, princes, and princesses of the 9 clans were all stunned when they heard this. Challenge Qi Xiong? Wasn't this a little too arrogant? Who was Qi Xiong? Even the patriarchs of the 9 clans did not have 100% confidence in defeating him. A mere human kid actually dared to speak so arrogantly. They really did not know where he borrowed the courage from. Qi Ji, what do you mean by sitting with them now? Are you trying to protect them? Let me tell you. This man and the wolf must die today, and your face will not be of any use. The patriarchs of the 9 clans looked at the patriarch of the Fire Qilin clan, and said with murderous intent, Tiji. Qin Feiyang glanced at the patriarch of the Fire Qilin clan. Compared to Qi Xiong, this patriarch of the Fire Qilin clan was indeed like a wise man who did not show anything on his face. However, looking from the side, Qi Ji was the one who was truly terrifying. This was because a person who did not show anything on his face was usually very scheming. Why do you have to do this? Do you really want the world to curse our Qilin clan for being unreasonable? Qiren sighed. Let them say whatever they want. Besides, as long as the 2 of them die here, who knows why they died? One of the patriarchs sneered. Qi Ji turned to look at Qin Feiyang with a trace of distress and helplessness on his face. Thank you for your concern, Senior. If Senior is not worried, leave this matter to me. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. When Qiji heard this, his eyes flashed slightly, and he smiled. Since little brother is so confident, then I will wait to enjoy a good show. I will not let senior down. Qin Feiyang put down the teacup, got up, and walked out of the pavilion step by step, then stepped into the sky step by step. Haha. Let's not talk about other things first, just his courage alone is worthy of praise. Elder Bai, don't you think so? Qiji laughed heartily and praised. Yes. The white-bearded old man nodded. This kind of courage and guts was indeed unprecedented. However, it might not be wise. In the sky above, Qi Xiong and the others saw that Qin Feiyang actually stood up to fight, and their faces were a little surprised. However, Qi Yu and the others had a look of disgust on their faces. What are you pretending for? You'll be crying later. Qi Yu said resentfully. Father, you must kill him and avenge your son. Don't worry. Qi Xiong smiled coldly. Opposite. Qin Feiyang stopped and stood in the air with Qi Xiong and the 9 clan leaders. He cupped his hands and smiled. Seniors, may I ask who has mastered the ultimate esoteric meaning of the law of life? What the hell? He actually has the mood to care about this? Pyrotechnic glow was stunned. Qi Xiong, the 9 patriarchs, Qi Yu, and the 10 patriarchs were speechless. Can't you see the situation clearly? Shouldn't you be thinking about how to save your life now? Besides, what does it have to do with you whether others have mastered the ultimate esoteric meaning of the law of life? There must be something wrong with your brain. But at the same time, when the white-eyed wolf heard Qin Feiyang's words, its eyes suddenly glowed green, and a trace of saliva even flowed out of the corner of its mouth. Because it knew what Qin Feiyang wanted to do. He was helping it find prey. Now, it had already mastered 5 ultimate esoteric meanings of the law of life, and only the last one was left. Originally, it had its eyes on the Heavenly Palace Lord. This was because the Heavenly Palace Lord had mastered the law of life. However, the Heavenly Palace Lord was too tactful and chose to ally with them. Since they had become allies, it was naturally impossible for them to attack her. Chapter 36:18. Since they couldn't kill the Sky Palace Master, they had to find another target. But to be honest, a healing-type law like the law of life was still quite rare. In the past few years, they had already traveled through all 4 continents once. They had seen other supreme laws, but the life laws of nature were truly rare to come by. Even if they hadn't comprehended the supreme laws. The laws of life, which did not have the highest profundity, was not tempting at all in the eyes of the ingrates. But now, the 9 clan leaders and Qi Xiong made up the 10 supreme experts. One of them should have mastered the supreme laws of life. Therefore, he was looking forward to Qi Xiong and the others' answers more than anyone else. But after waiting for a while, all he got was mockery. None of them answered Qin Feiyang's question directly. The white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows and sneered. A group of supreme experts don't even have the courage to answer such a small question? What a joke. What's the harm in telling you? I have mastered the supreme laws of life. A woman among the 9 clan leaders said proudly. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf immediately looked at the woman with a strange light in their eyes. The woman looked to be in her 30s. She was wearing a light green dress and had soft black hair and a youthful face. She looked elegant and refined. Little Qinzi, you must take her down, the white-eyed wolf said excitedly. Don't worry. Just wait patiently for her to integrate with the life laws. Qin Feiyang smiled inwardly, and a surging aura surged out. He pointed at the green-clad woman, and a boundless battle intent surged towards her. You're the first to challenge me? The woman in green raised her eyebrows. The 9 clan leaders and Qi Xiong were all here, but they chose to challenge her first. Why? Did they think she was a pushover? Qi Xiong turned to the woman and said, Qi Yefeng, he's just a junior. It's not good for us to gang up on him. So it's up to you now. Don't lose to a junior. The other 8 clan leaders also put on a fake smile. They all wanted to borrow Qi Yefeng's strength to see how strong Qin Feiyang was. Qi Yefeng snorted coldly and said, As the patriarch of the Wuxia clan, how can I tolerate the arrogance and despotism of a junior? Boom. An aura burst out. Seeing that a great battle was about to break out, Princess Huofeng stood up and looked at Qi Yefeng. She frowned and said, "Senior Patriarch, it's inappropriate for you to bully a junior like this. You have a problem with it?" Qi Yefeng raised her eyebrows. Qi Xiong and the others also looked at Princess Huofeng, frowning slightly. Feng people actually stood out to protect Qin Feiyang? Was this Feng Ho's idea? Or was it Princess Huofeng's personal opinion? "I don't dare." Princess Huofeng shook her head and then sneered. "But it's true that Qi Yu and the others provoked us first. Seniors, aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by the world if you don't distinguish right from wrong?" Qi Yefeng was furious and shouted, "How dare a little girl criticize us seniors? I'm afraid even your father, the Fire Feng people, doesn't have the guts. I'm just stating facts. Moreover, you claim to be our senior, so you should act like one. Not to mention my father, the patriarch of the Ice Phoenix clan, has never personally intervened in the grudges between juniors, even though Bing Runing and Qin Feiyang are at loggerheads." Princess Huofeng looked straight at Qi Yefeng without the slightest fear. What she meant was, they were both patriarchs, but their characters were worlds apart. What an oblique accusation. Why didn't I notice before that you're so eloquent? However, I'd like to know if you're standing up to protect Qin Feiyang and the Golden-Winged Wolf King is your personal decision, or is it an order from your father and Feng Ho? Qi Yefeng sneered. "This matter has nothing to do with my father, nor does it have anything to do with Lord Feng Ho. I'm not trying to offend you, but I hope you can act like one," Princess Huofeng said. "Since even Feng Ho didn't say anything, why are you, a little girl, trying to show off? This is not your phoenix nest, and I won't tolerate your willful behavior." Qi Yefeng roared, and a force of death surged out and rushed toward Princess Huofeng. Seeing this, Daifuku quickly stepped in front of Princess Huofeng, and the power of time and space roared out. The two strongest power of laws collided with each other. A destructive aura erupted in the sky. Qi Ji, the patriarch of the Fire Qilin clan, raised his eyebrows, and a terrifying divine power emerged from his body. This was the aura of a sovereign divine weapon, and it instantly wiped out the destructive aura born from the collision of the two power of laws. He shouted, "If you want to fight, go to the Star River, not the Qilin Holy Land." "Okay. I'll wait for you in the Star River." Qi Yefeng stared at Qin Feiyang and the others and said coldly. She instantly rushed into the sky and stepped into the Star River. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf glanced at Princess Huofeng. This woman was quite loyal and brave. She dared to stand up for them in the Qilin Holy Land. It seemed that it was worth it to help her open the door of potential. "Let's go." Qin Feiyang stepped forward and quickly stepped into the Star River. "When we enter the Star River, don't talk too much." The white-eyed wolf glared at Princess Huofeng and rushed into the Star River like lightning. There was a hint of concern in his words. Princess Huofeng snorted coldly. She helped them so much, but he didn't even say a word of thanks. Instead, he blamed her for talking too much. He really didn't know what was good for him. "Princess, you really shouldn't interrupt. After all, this is the Qilin Holy Land." Daifuku sighed inwardly. "So what? Could it be that they can bully others as they wish in the Qilin Holy Land? They're really unreasonable." Princess Huofeng was dissatisfied. Daifuku smiled bitterly. However, when he glanced at Qi Xiong and the others, his heart couldn't help but tremble. There was a hint of killing intent in their eyes. It wasn't killing intent toward Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. It was killing intent toward them. Although they were the people of the Feng people and the two princes were the descendants of the patriarch, even if Qi Xiong and the others killed them now, the patriarch wouldn't have any reason to blame them. It was because they had barged in without permission. "Let's go. I'd like to see what they can do to us." Princess Huofeng also noticed the abnormality. She snorted and went straight to the Star River. Sigh. Daifuku sighed inwardly. He had no choice but to chase after her with pyrotechnic glow and xiaofu. In fact, they couldn't avoid it. Now that they were in the Qilin Holy Land, they didn't have the final say. Qi Xiong and the others looked at each other and sneered. They also quickly followed. Qi Yu and the others naturally wouldn't miss such a good show. Qi Ji looked at Princess Huofeng's back and whispered, "Old Bai, the reaction of the Feng people seems to be a bit unexpected." Yes. The 1,000-year promise of the Feng people should be related to the princess. The white-bearded old man nodded. Let's go and have a look. To be honest, I'm also looking forward to Qin Feiyang's performance. Qi Ji smiled faintly and stepped into the air with the white-bearded old man. A battle between omnipotent experts naturally couldn't take place in the Qilin Holy Land. This was because once a battle of this level completely broke out, the entire Qilin Holy Land would be razed to the ground. In the distance, a courtyard was surrounded by mountains and rivers. It was extremely quiet. In front of the courtyard, a lady in red looked up at the sky with a shocked face. As expected of Qin Feiyang, he even dared to fight against omnipotent experts like the patriarchs of the 9 tribes and Qi Xiong. When the group of people disappeared into the Star River, the lady in red retracted her gaze and turned to look at a tea garden not far away. In the tea garden, a white figure seemed to be watering the tea plants. She asked, "Young master, do you want to go and have a look?" "What's there to see? It's a sure win situation." The white figure smiled without turning his head. "A sure win?" The lady in red was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Do you mean Qi Yefeng or Qin Feiyang? Do you care so much about their victory?" The white figure retorted with a casual tone. Hearing this, the lady in red could not help but smile bitterly. At this moment, the entire Qilin clan was paying attention. Only the young master did not care. It was no wonder that the patriarch scolded him all day long. Yes. Right now, the entire Qilin clan was paying attention to this battle. However, when they reached the peak of the clouds, they were stopped outside the Star River by the white-bearded old man. "Old White, what do you mean by stopping us?" There were many talented youths of the Qilin clan, and a large number of omnipotent experts. They all looked at the white-bearded old man with dissatisfaction. "I'm sorry. This is the Patriarch's order. Before the battle ends, no one is allowed to step into the Star River." The white-bearded old man smiled apologetically. Why? Everyone was indignant. "The Patriarch's orders should not need to be explained to you." The white-bearded old man chuckled and a dark force appeared. This was the law of darkness. It emitted a terrifying aura and directly sealed the entrance of the Star River. Then, the white-bearded old man flew towards the Star River without looking back. Bastard old man. Isn't he just Qi Xiaoyan's teacher? In the end, he's just an outsider. What are you being arrogant for? The people who were blocked outside cursed angrily. It was worth mentioning that many people were unable to break through the seal of the Dark Force, even after activating their strongest laws. Star River. In the depths, Qin Feiyang and Qi Yefeng stood in the air. 2 powerful auras collided crazily, causing the surrounding starry sky to tremble. Princess Huafeng and the other 3, Qi Ji, Qi Xiong, and the others stood at the exit of the Star River, watching the battle from afar. The white-eyed wolf maintained a distance from the group of people and looked at Qi Yefeng with shifty eyes. Suddenly, it activated momentary time and rushed to Qin Feiyang's side like lightning. "You want to fight 2 against 1? Sure. You're all ants anyway." Qi Yefeng smiled disdainfully. "You think you're worthy of us joining hands?" The white-eyed wolf's face was full of contempt as he sent a voice transmission. "Little Qin Zi, send me to the castle. Later, cripple her cultivation and send her to the castle as well, lest Qi Xiong and the others stop me from fusing with the law of life." "You're quite thoughtful." Qin Feiyang was surprised. "What a joke. This matter concerns my future. Of course I have to put in more effort." The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Chapter 36:19. Bastard. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at it. This guy would only take things seriously when it came to his own matters. With a wave of Qin Feiyang's hand, the white-eyed wolf instantly disappeared. He looked up at Qi Yefeng and said with a smile, "Come on, don't show any mercy. You're really arrogant. But now you'd better stand aside and watch obediently." Qi Yefeng's eyes flashed coldly. Boom. The power of laws surged out. The power of laws of fire, sword light, death and destruction. The power of the 5 laws surged like angry waves in the starry sky. Whoosh. At this moment, Qi Yefeng turned to look at Princess Huafeng and shouted, "Now I'll take the place of the Fire Feng people and teach you a lesson." The power of the 5 laws suddenly turned into a torrent and rushed toward Princess Huofeng. Qi Yefeng, how dare you? Daifuku shouted angrily and stood in front of Princess Huofeng without hesitation. The princess's previous rebuttal had indeed caused this woman to hold a grudge. As Princess Huofeng's guardian, he certainly would not allow anyone to hurt her. He activated the space-time law's supreme esoteric meaning without hesitation. The ice fragments in the sky turned into a tall shield wall in front of him. With a loud bang, the power of the 5 laws blasted toward him. Fortunately, Qi Yefeng did not activate the supreme esoteric meaning, and only used the power of laws. In addition, the shield wall was formed by the supreme esoteric meaning of the space-time law, so it blocked the attack of the 5 laws. How dare you attack me in front of me? You're like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. You overestimate yourself. Daifuku's action completely angered Qi Yefeng, because it made her lose face. Rumble. Accompanied by a terrifying aura, the power of the 5 laws quickly evolved into the 5 supreme esoteric meanings in the void, exuding an aura of destruction. Crack! The starry sky suddenly began to collapse, as if it was the end of the world. What? Qin Feiyang's expression changed drastically. 5 laws, 5 supreme esoteric meanings. This was the strength of a clan leader? No. This person's life law had not been activated. In other words, Qi Yefeng had mastered 6 supreme esoteric meanings. 3 supreme esoteric meanings of the 3 supreme esoteric meanings of the 3 supreme esoteric meanings. Such a terrifying strength was indeed not something that the Demon Hall and the other major powers could compare to. It was not an exaggeration. The Qilin clan's 10 great races, any one of the patriarchs could flatten the 4 continents if they walked out. The disparity between the human race and the various forbidden regions was indeed not a tiny bit. You really want to kill? Come. Although she did have the intention to contradict him, she was not wrong. What she said was the truth. Based. Qi Yefeng, don't go too far. Daifuku was also enraged. Xiaofu could no longer sit still. She ran to Daifuku's side and said angrily, "You're a clan leader. Is that all you can do?" But Qi Yefeng turned a deaf ear. Her face was full of killing intent. She wants to kill. Hurry. Daifuku's face turned pale as he shouted at his abdomen. Boom. The 2 of them activated their supreme esoteric meanings. Daifuku had mastered 3 supreme esoteric meanings. They were space-time law, fire law, and slaughter law. His abdomen also mastered 2 supreme esoteric meanings. They were metal law and fire law. These were also the 5 supreme esoteric meanings. However, the supreme esoteric meaning of the supreme esoteric meanings was only space-time law. But now, they could only fight with all their might to protect Princess Huofeng and pyrotechnic glow. Boom. The 5 supreme esoteric meanings attacked. A deafening sound exploded in the galaxy. Of Qi Yefeng's 5 supreme esoteric meanings, 2 were the supreme esoteric meanings of the supreme esoteric meanings. Daifuku and Xiaofu could only resist for a short while before they were defeated. Then, Qi Yefeng's 5 supreme esoteric meanings instantly drowned the 2 of them. Ah! Accompanied by pain screams, the 2 brothers were instantly drenched in blood. This was the strength of a clan leader. Even if the 2 supreme experts joined forces, they were no match for Qi Yefeng. One had to know. Qi Yefeng had not activated the life law. Although the life law was a healing type, it still had some lethality. If Qi Yefeng activated the 6 supreme esoteric meanings, the 2 of them would have no chance of winning. At the moment of life and death, the Daifuku brothers did not dare to hold back. They decisively activated the Fire Phoenix domain and finally escaped the disaster. Princess Huofeng looked at the injuries on the 2 brothers. Her eyes were suddenly filled with anger. She shouted, "Qi Yefeng, I have always respected you and called you senior. So please show us some respect. As a junior, you call me by my name. Is this considered respect? It seems that you have not realized where your mistake is. The Fire Phone people are really powerful. To be able to raise a son like you, it is really a misfortune for the family." Qi Yefeng sneered. She activated the 5 supreme esoteric meanings and shattered the sky. Moreover, the target this time was no longer the Daifuku brothers, but Princess Huofeng. Qi Yefeng, if you dare to hurt His Highness, the Feng people will not let this go. Daifuku roared. Your Highness, there is no need to be polite with her. Activate the sovereign divine weapon. Xiaofu also looked at Princess Huofeng and shouted. Activate the sovereign divine weapon? Do you know where we are now? Once you activate the sovereign divine weapon, it will be a declaration of war against the Kirin clan. At that time, I am afraid that even the Fire Feng people will not be able to save you. Qi Yefeng sneered. It doesn't matter. At most, we will fight to the death. The two brothers roared. Haha, you have backbone. But very stupid. Qi Yefeng laughed presumptuously. That's right. If Princess Huofeng really used the sovereign divine weapon here, it would definitely set off an unprecedented battle. And it would be very unfavorable for Princess Huofeng's current situation. Because the Kirin clan's sovereign divine weapon was no less than the Feng people. And now, Princess Huofeng and Pyrotechnic Glow only had 5 sovereign divine weapons. How could they be a match for the Kirin clan? So, whether it was Qi Yefeng or Qi Xiong, they could not wait for the siblings to do so, because this way, they could justifiably kill the two without any worries. At that time, not to mention the Fire Feng people, even if Feng Ho came in person, he would not be able to defend the siblings. In the face of such ridicule and provocation from Qi Yefeng, whether it was the Daifuku brothers or the eldest princess and her brother, they all suppressed a breath of anger in their hearts. Isn't your opponent me? Swoosh. But suddenly, a figure landed in front of Princess Huofeng and the other 3 at lightning speed, and looked at Qi Yefeng lightly. Qin Feiyang. Daifuku and the other 3 looked at Qin Feiyang's back view and their eyes trembled slightly. In a trance, this thin figure seemed to be incomparably majestic. It seems that bullying the weak is a very successful thing for you. The corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted slightly. Qi Yefeng's strength was indeed strong. The 6 profound meanings were enough to suppress everything, and could be said to be at the peak of perfection. However, no matter how strong one was, there would always be someone stronger. Qin Feiyang, you have to be careful. She will not give you any chance to turn the tables. Daifuku warned. As expected. But do you think I will give her a chance to turn the tables? Qin Feiyang laughed. The Daifuku brothers were speechless. If it was before the battle with the eldest prince of the dragons, Qi Yefeng naturally had the ability to suppress Qin Feiyang. But now, it was a different story for a terror general. Good. Very good. Even now you still dare to boast shamelessly. Since you want to court death, this seat will fulfill your wish first. Looking at Qin Feiyang's arrogant attitude, Qi Yefeng was so angry that she laughed. The auras of the 5 profound meanings, which were originally attacking First Princess Fire Phoenix, immediately locked onto Qin Feiyang. Their divine might spread out in all directions. Do you really think you have the ability to kill me? At this moment, Qin Feiyang's expression was full of disdain and contempt. Generally speaking, he would not look down on anyone, but this time it was an exception. This kind of idiot who liked to take advantage of his seniority and bully others, no matter how strong he was or how high his status was, he was not worthy of his respect. As his voice landed schwa, beside him, 10 clones appeared, all of them identical. Right. His killing move is not just the Eye of Heaven. He also has 3,000 clones and slaughter domain. Daifuku's gaze flickered. This was simply an invincible existence. Apart from the profound meanings and the sovereign weapon, who else could fight against this kid? Bang! The moment the 10 clones appeared, intense killing intent burst out from their eyes. The profound meanings of the law of karma and the law of destruction were activated. Their terrifying auras shook the galaxy. The 10 clones were equivalent to 20 profound meanings of the supreme laws. As for Qi Yefeng, she had 3 profound meanings of the ordinary laws and 2 profound meanings of the supreme laws. Be it in terms of quality or quantity, the difference was like heaven and earth. You are the one who is going to die. Kill. Following the roar of the 10 clones, the 20 ultimate profundities of the strongest laws surged forward like terrifying godly weapons. There was no suspense. Faced with such a huge gap, the 5 profound meanings of the supreme laws were shattered on the spot. They did not even have the slightest power to resist. What? The shattering of the profound meanings of the supreme laws made Qi Yefeng spit out a mouthful of blood. Her gaze trembled. Wasn't this kid's strongest move the eye of heaven? It seems like you don't know much about me. This is not good. If you have time, you should go out and find out more. Qin Feiyang did not make a move from the beginning to the end. It was the 10 clones that were fighting. Since he had decided to humiliate the other party, he naturally had to do it ruthlessly without any mercy. Arrogant? Like to bully others? Fine. Now I will let you know that as the patriarch of a clan, you are not even qualified for me to make a move. After shattering the 5 profound meanings of the supreme laws, the 10 clones unleashed their auras. They were like gods of death, carrying the profound meanings of the supreme laws as they crossed the starry sky and charged toward Qi Yefeng. Rumble. Crack. The starry sky collapsed. It was like a scene of the end of the world. In the face of such a powerful attack, Qi Yefeng was covered in wounds in just a few blinks of an eye. Blood flowed out. Chapter 36:20. So powerful. Upon seeing this, the hearts of the various utmost powerful beings at the scene surged with emotions. Especially the Daifuku brothers, Princess Huafeng and Pyrotechnic Glow. Before breaking through to the sovereign realm, Qin Feiyang's strength was also very powerful and invincible in the same realm. However, facing a sovereign realm supreme expert, he had no power at all. Unless he activated the slaughter zone and used the sovereign divine weapon. But now, Qin Feiyang had stepped into the sovereign realm. Not to mention supreme experts, even super supreme experts like Qi Yefeng were no match for him. Before and after breaking through, they were on 2 different levels. But now, in the entire sky cloud boundary, in the various forbidden zones, without the sovereign divine weapon and ultimacy, who could compete with him? It was too terrifying. Not only was Qin Feiyang's talent terrifying, but the divine techniques he had mastered were also more terrifying. 3,000 clones slaughter zone. Where did these heaven-defying killing techniques come from? Even the forbidden zones with deep foundations and countless years of history didn't have such divine techniques. I can't even compare to a human junior. Looking at Qi Yefeng again. She seemed to have gone crazy, and her ferocious face was filled with disbelief. Junior. With my current strength, I can even be your ancestor. Do you really think you're so great? The 10 clones' eyes were filled with contempt. You're courting death. Qi Yefeng was burning with anger. Accompanied by a terrifying aura, a huge qilin appeared out of nowhere. Every hair on its body was like a green gem, bright and dazzling. Qilin real body. Do you think you can reverse the situation and turn defeat into victory by reverting to your original form? Sorry, no matter how heaven-defying your methods are, you'll still be at our feet today. The 10 clones laughed and used the space-time step, raising their fists and attacking Qi Yefeng crazily. Although they were clones, they had inherited Qin Feiyang's powerful physical body and strength. The power of one punch was enough to shatter heaven and earth. At this moment, Qi Yefeng was like a huge sandbag being beaten up by the 10 clones. This was not only a destruction of her physical body, but also a trampling of her dignity. The bodies of divine beasts were naturally stronger than those of humans, especially in existence like the qilin. His powerful physical body was enough to crush anyone. But no matter how strong he was, how could he compare to a supreme being's physique and strength? You have completely infuriated me. All of you wake up. Qi Yefeng roared. As one of the overlords of the Forbidden Lands, he had never been so furious before. Boom. As a terrifying aura appeared, a barrier that was 100 meters tall appeared. The 10 clones attacked the barrier with all of their might, but they were unable to damage it at all. Qilin domain? The 10 incarnations surrounded the barrier and frowned slightly. Roar. But in the next moment, a huge qilin beast shadow roared out of the barrier, exuding a monstrous aura. Under this divine might, even the 10 incarnations felt a sense of fatal danger. Qin Feiyang, this is not the Qilin domain. This is the Qilin clan's taboo technique, Qilin divine domain. Princess Huafeng roared in shock and anger. She had never imagined that Qi Yefeng would actually use a forbidden technique. Qilin divine domain? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. That's right. Although the Qilin domain and Qilin divine domain only differ by one word, the difference in power between the two is like heaven and earth. The Qilin domain is only a powerful forbidden technique, and it only has defensive abilities. But this Qilin divine domain is a super forbidden technique. Not only is its defensive power above the former, but it also has a terrifying lethality. Princess Huofeng secretly explained. Super forbidden technique. Qin Feiyang was shocked and couldn't help but recall the super forbidden technique that the fire dragon had activated. That power could simply be described as invincible. If it wasn't for the fact that his Eye of Heaven had already merged and transformed, he would really have to activate the slaughter domain, or use the sovereign divine weapon to be a match for it. Unexpectedly, the Qilin clan actually had such a super forbidden technique. Go to hell, go to hell. Qi Yefeng laughed sinisterly. The Qilin beast shadow was like an ancient giant beast that had appeared in the world, crazily pouncing on the 10 incarnations. Qin Feiyang stared at the Qilin beast shadow and transmitted his voice. Why didn't Qi Yu and the others activate this forbidden technique at that time? Princess Huofeng secretly said. Because only the patriarchs of the various clans are qualified to inherit the forbidden technique. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and said with a faint smile. In that case, Yufeng people and dragons should also have forbidden techniques. You can still laugh. Princess Huofeng was speechless and nodded. That's right, we also have forbidden techniques, but like the Qilin clan, only the patriarchs of the various clans can inherit it. It seems that you people from the forbidden zones really can't be underestimated. But, at this point, Qin Feiyang changed the topic and said coldly, so what if you have forbidden techniques? A clown is still a clown after all. If it was someone else, even if it was the Qilin realm, they would be helpless, let alone the forbidden technique. But now, Qi Yefeng was facing his avatar. Qin Feiyang looked at the 10 avatars and said lightly, let her have a taste of true despair. Hey. The 10 avatars bared their teeth. That was exactly what he wanted. Roar. Accompanied by a deafening dragon roar, 10 purple gold dragon souls appeared. The Eye of Heaven was activated in an instant. In an instant, a Qilin realm appeared around the 10 avatars, and the Qilin beast shadows roared out. What? What exactly are they? Not only can they activate the Order Ultimacy, but they can also activate the Fighting Soul and even the Eye of Heaven. The appearance of this scene shocked everyone present. The 3,000 avatars were too terrifying. They were completely replicas of Qin Feiyang. If those who did not know saw this scene, they would definitely think that the 10 avatars were Qin Feiyang's biological brothers from the same mother. There was no suspense. Qi Yefeng was also enlightened on the spot. She did not expect that the avatars could activate the Eye of Heaven. These were the 10 real Qin Feiyang. Regardless of whether it was in terms of strength or skills, they were exactly the same. The Qilin clan's forbidden skill was indeed powerful, but she was alone. On the other hand, the 10 avatars had replicas of the 10 great forbidden skills. Most importantly, even the replicas of the forbidden skills were not inferior to hers. 1 against 10. Was there any chance of winning? She did not want to see the result, because the result was already decided. The huge Qilin real body was paralyzed in the starry sky. Regardless of whether it was her face or her eyes, they were filled with fear and despair. Humph. Serves you right. The Daifuka brothers snorted coldly. This was the price of being arrogant. Fear filled the hearts of Qi Xiong and the other 8 patriarchs. They never would have thought that Qin Feiyang's strength had already reached such a level. Even if they joined forces, they were not fully confident of defeating him. Even Qi Xiong and the others were like this, not to mention Qi Yu and the other juniors. Their hearts were already terrified to the extreme. It turned out that this was Qin Feiyang's true strength. At the edge of the inner area, he did not seriously fight with them at all. To think that they thought they could defeat this person. This was simply a joke. Boom. Accompanied by an earth-shaking explosion, the Qilin beast shadow summoned by Qi Yefeng shattered on the spot in the void in the face of the 10 avatars' forbidden skills. Following closely, the 10 great forbidden skills charged towards Qi Yefeng. Qi Ji took a deep breath and raised his head to look at Qin Feiyang standing in front of him. He smiled and said, "The battle has already been decided. Little brother, please be merciful. However, Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear. Be merciful? What a joke. He did not see this woman being merciful before. Moreover, the white-eyed wolf was waiting to fuse with the law of life in the black tortoise realm. Looking at the indifferent Qin Feiyang, Qiji could not help but frown. Clang. However, at this moment, an ear-piercing sword sound rang out. A green divine light swept out from Qi Yefeng's body, exuding a sharp aura that could destroy the world. The 10 great forbidden skills were annihilated on the spot. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and looked at the sky above Qi Yefeng's head. A 3-foot-long thin sword was floating. It looked like it was made of emerald. It was crystal clear and emitted a dazzling divine light. Sovereign divine weapon. I am the leader of a clan. How can I be defeated by a junior like you? The appearance of the sovereign divine weapon made Qi Yefeng's fighting spirit recover. She raised her head to look at Qin Feiyang and roared. A majestic life force emerged. Qi Yefeng, who was covered in wounds before, was instantly healed. This is the law of life? Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. Having the law of life was equivalent to having an immortal body. Clang. Qi Yefeng transformed into her human form and grabbed the sovereign divine weapon. The sharp aura could topple mountains and overturn seas as she charged toward the 10 clones. Although the 10 clones were strong, they could not withstand the sovereign divine weapon's aura, and were all destroyed in an instant. Qi Yefeng, stop here. Qiji shouted. Stop here. Are you joking with me? Qi Yefeng sneered. She held the sovereign divine weapon and charged toward Qin Feiyang. How could she stop now? If she did not kill Qin Feiyang, she would not have the face to face her clan in the future. You. Qiji was furious. Can't you tell that I am helping you? You really don't know what's good for you. In the blink of an eye, Qi Yefeng was almost in front of Qin Feiyang. Even Qin Feiyang did not dare to be careless when facing the sovereign divine weapon. Similarly, Qi Yefeng's actions had also angered him. Before, when Brother Daifuku was about to activate the sovereign divine weapon, what did this woman say? Activating the sovereign divine weapon was a declaration of war against the Qilin clan. What? Now that it was her turn, she did not care so much? It was true that only the officials were allowed to set fires, but the common people were not allowed to light lamps. Clang. Accompanied by 2 terrifying auras, the Horsetail Whisk and the Grim Reaper's sword appeared at the same time and charged forward. With a loud bang, the sovereign divine weapon in Qi Yefeng's hand flew out. Qi Yefeng was also sent flying, spitting out blood. As expected. He alone has 2 sovereign divine weapons. No. I heard that he has an ancient castle. Qi Xiong and the others trembled. With 3 sovereign divine weapons, 3,000 clones, the slaughter domain, the Eye of Heaven, and other heaven-defying means, who could be his opponent in a one-on-one battle? Chapter 36-21. I'm immortal. Qi Yefeng stabilized her body and activated the law of life, healing her injuries. Immortal? Qin Feiyang sneered and looked at the Horsetail Whisk and the Grim Reaper's sword. Hold that sovereign weapon back. No problem. The 2 sovereign weapons charged forward. With a thought from Qin Feiyang, 100 incarnations appeared. So many? Qi Xiong and the others were stunned. Qi Yefeng was helpless against 10 clones, let alone 100. Crush her body so that she can't activate the law of life. Qin Feiyang shouted. 100 clones flew out and activated their ultimates. This time around, there were a whopping 200 supreme ultimates. This could be described as apocalyptic. Even Princess Huifeng and the other 3 could not help but feel their scalps go numb. Boom! As the 100 clones charged forward, Qi Yefeng's eyes were filled with mockery. Forbidden technique, Qilin's domain activated. Although your Eye of Heaven can replicate the forbidden technique, as long as I don't activate the forbidden technique, Qilin's domain, it's meaningless even if you can replicate it. Because Qilin's domain only has defensive abilities and no offensive abilities. So now, you can't break the defense of Qilin's domain. Qi Yefeng sneered. That's right. Hearing Qi Yefeng's words, Qi Xiong and the others slapped their heads in realization. Although the Eye of Heaven was heaven-defying, as long as Qin Feiyang didn't get a chance, it couldn't do anything to Qi Yefeng. Before, Qi Yefeng activated the forbidden technique, Qilan's domain. Since Qilan's domain had strong offensive abilities, Qin Feiyang replicated it with the Eye of Heaven. But now, Qi Yefeng activated the forbidden technique, Qilan's domain. Although Qilan's domain had amazing defensive abilities, it didn't have any offensive abilities. Even if Qin Feiyang replicated it, the most he could do was increase the defensive abilities of the 100 clones. With the strength of the 100 clones, they couldn't break Qi Yefeng's domain. If they couldn't break Qi Yefeng's domain, they couldn't hurt her. Really? Then, how long do you think the life force you possess can last? Qin Feiyang disagreed. Haha, naive. I, who have mastered the ultimate profundities of the laws of life, possess an endless amount of life force. Now, it's not you exhausting me to death, it's me exhausting you to death. Qi Yefeng laughed mockingly. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in understanding. As it turned out, with the law of life, he could activate forbidden techniques without any worries. It seemed that he had underestimated the laws of life. Since that was the case, he had even more reason to help the white-eyed wolf obtain the law of life. This was because once the white-eyed wolf grasped the law of life, he would be able to easily avert danger in the future. Let's consider this battle a draw. Qi smiled. What a joke. Qin Feiyang and Qi Yefeng spoke at the same time. Since they had already fought to this extent, how could it end just like that? Come on. If you have the ability, then break open the Qilan's domain. I will stand here and let you kill me. Qi Yefeng clamored. All right. I would like to see how powerful this Qilan's domain is. With a thought, Qin Feiyang fully activated his 3,000 clones. What? Qi Xiong and the rest were dumbfounded. There were indeed 3,000 clones. It was equivalent to 3,000 Qin Feiyang. Was this the rhythm of defying the heavens? Whether it's a divine technique or a forbidden technique, there is a limit. I am looking forward to it. Can 3,000 clones surpass the limit of the Qilan's domain? As Qin Feiyang's voice fell, the 3,000 clones stepped forward at the same time and landed around Qi Yefeng. The ultimate profundities of the laws of destruction and karma were instantly activated. There were a total of 6,000 ultimate profundities. What kind of scene was this? Even for a super powerful being like Qi Ji, he had never seen so many ultimates before. It could only be described with 4 words. Appalling. Looking at this scene, even Qi Yefeng's heart couldn't help but start to pound. Could the Qilan's domain withstand the bombardment of 3,000 ultimate profundities? You should feel honored. Because ever since I stepped into the complete dominator realm, you are the first person who made me activate all 3,000 clones. No, you are the second. The first person who made me activate all 3,000 clones, the fire dragon, died on White Crane Island. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. Kill. As Qin Feiyang's voice fell, the 3,000 clones roared at the same time. The 6,000 ultimate profundities instantly turned into a torrent that drowned the starry sky and charged towards the Qilan's domain. At this moment, whether it was Princess Huofeng and the other 3, or Qi Xiong and the rest, all of them stared at the Qilan's domain. Don't think that this matter had nothing to do with them. On the contrary, it had a lot to do with it. Because all of them had mastered forbidden techniques. If Qin Feiyang really had the ability to break the Qilan's domain, it meant that if they were to become enemies with Qin Feiyang in the future, the forbidden techniques that they had mastered wouldn't be able to protect them. Rumble. Accompanied by a series of loud noises, 6,000 ultimate profundities blasted onto the Qilan's domain, and a destructive aura instantly swept across all directions. Kacha. A faint voice could be heard. But this sound was like a clap of thunder in everyone's ears. The group of people hurriedly looked towards the direction of the sound, and saw that a crack suddenly appeared right above the Qilan's domain. It really works. The forbidden technique that has always been invincible was actually forcefully broken by him. Everyone's heart trembled, especially Qiyu and the rest. In their eyes, the Qilan's domain had always been an invincible existence. Other than the ultimate profundities and the sovereign divine weapon, no one had the ability to match it at all. In the past, it was indeed so. As long as the Qilan's domain was activated, it was equivalent to being in an invincible position. But they never thought that a human would actually break this invincible legend today. 6,000. 6,000 ultimate profundities, never heard of, never seen before. If Qin Feiyang took out other ultimate profundities, coupled with the 3,000 clones, how terrifying would it be? At this moment, Qi Yu and the rest of the younger generation finally realized what a terrifying existence they had provoked. Ultimate profundities, under the sovereign divine weapon, Qin Feiyang was an invincible human king. Similarly, this battle not only allowed the Qilin clan and Princess Huofeng's group of 4 to understand Qin Feiyang's true strength. Even Qin Feiyang himself finally had a clear understanding of his own strength. Eye of Heaven, 3,000 clones, Slaughter Domain. With these means added together, he was completely capable of competing with the various forbidden zones. Of course, it was only limited to the various clan leaders. It was also limited to the premise of not activating the sovereign divine weapon. If all of them activated the sovereign divine weapon, Qin Feiyang naturally wouldn't be able to match up to the various forbidden zones. After all, the number of sovereign divine weapons of the various forbidden zones far exceeded his. As for the Dragon King, Feng Ho, and the Qilin clan leader, these few tyrannical forbidden zone rulers naturally had to be treated differently. After all, no one knew just how terrifying their strength and means were. Kacha. In less than 3 breaths, the Qilin domain suddenly shattered. 6,000 profundities instantly drowned Qi Yefeng. The destructive aura like a volcanic eruption, shattering billions of miles of the galaxy. This was the true scene of doomsday. If this was the Qilin sacred land now, who knew how many casualties there would be? I'm immortal, I'm immortal. Qi Yefeng roared hysterically. The life laws were like a vast ocean, drowning this galaxy. Her physical body was constantly shattered and reconstructed. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but be dumbfounded by this scene. If it were any other super supreme expert, facing 6,000 profundities, they wouldn't be able to survive. But this woman relied on the life laws, and was unable to shatter her physical body. One had to admit that the life laws were really powerful. However, no matter how she struggled, in the end, the white-eyed wolf had to take advantage of her. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a bright light as he flashed above Qi Yefeng with a single step. An invisible mighty force gushed out and enveloped Qi Yefeng like a torrent. In the next instant, she vanished without a trace. And Qi Xiong and the others were stunned. What was he doing? Ancient Castle Hall. The white-eyed wolf was waiting. Suddenly, a powerful aura appeared, and the white-eyed wolf's spirit was instantly lifted. He turned to look at Qi Yefeng, and when he saw the life laws around Qi Yefeng, his eyes lit up. Suddenly coming to this unfamiliar place, Qi Yefeng was also a little stunned. White-eyed wolf, this person has mastered the life laws, and I can't shatter her physical body no matter how hard I try. However, I left her sovereign divine weapon outside, so it won't be a threat to you. So now, let the ancient castle help to suppress her and forcefully seize her. Qin Feiyang's voice sounded in the ancient castle. You can't shatter her physical body no matter how hard you try? So powerful? The white-eyed wolf was stunned, and then became even more excited. He roared, Ancient castle, quickly suppress her. Boom. The pressure of the sovereign divine weapon instantly enveloped them from all directions. Ancient castle? Seize. When Qi Yueying heard Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf's words, she was shocked. Could this be Qin Feiyang's third sovereign divine weapon, the ancient castle? Without any hesitation, she turned and rushed out of the door. But it was too late. The ancient castle's pressure had firmly confined her in the hall. No matter how strong you are, you can't escape the suppression of a sovereign divine weapon. This was the reason why all living things in the world feared a sovereign divine weapon. Once a sovereign divine weapon appeared, all living things in the world would have to submit. This is simply a big fat sheep. I won't hesitate to enjoy it. The white-eyed wolf laughed and activated his innate ability, enveloping Qi Yefeng. Outside, Qi Xiong and the others came back to their senses and glared at Qin Feiyang. He shouted, Where did you send her? What do you want to do to her? Don't worry, you will know soon. Qin Feiyang turned around and glanced at the group of people with a smile. The 3,000 incarnations stood behind Qin Feiyang in an orderly manner, each of them exuding a shocking murderous aura. The horsetail whisk and the sword of the Grim Reaper had also stopped fighting. They flew above Qin Feiyang, their divine auras surging and intimidating in all directions. Brother Qin, this is just a sparring match. You don't have to be so ruthless. The white-bearded old man looked at Qin Feiyang and frowned. A sparring match? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback, and he wanted to laugh inexplicably. Forbidden techniques, and sovereign divine weapons were all activated. If he wasn't strong enough, he would have been a lonely soul under Qi Yefeng's command. But now this person was telling him that this was just a sparring match. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.